Today I'm rebuilding the Los Angeles Angels for 20 years in MLB The Show 25. In the entire history of this channel, I don't think I've ever done a 20-year rebuild, so I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes, especially using a team like the Angels, who of course still have Mike Trout, along with several other young players. They recently traded for Grayson Rodriguez, which, at least in my opinion, could end up being a huge fleece for the Angels, as he's just a few years removed from being the top prospect in baseball. I think the big question in this one, though, is can we win Mike Trout a ring? In this video, I have 20 years to turn the Angels into a dynasty, and that's a lot of time. So if you're new to the channel or you just haven't subscribed yet, definitely make that red button white because we've got a lot more rebuilds coming down the pipe this offseason. To make this more interesting, I gotta spin from the wheel of chaos, which can really hurt us, and that is not a good start. Right out the gate, I've got to trade the #1 prospect in the Angels system in newly drafted pitcher Tyler Bremner. Having to move on from our highest ceiling pitcher, especially in a rotation that's not in good shape, is a bad start. I'm gonna trade him away for the best prospect package I can get, and going through the options, it looks like teams are being pretty cheap. I did see one offer that I liked though, so we're gonna go and get George Lombard Jr. from the Yankees. Now, even though we're rebuilding this team for 20 years, and they're ranked number 27th right now, I am a huge fan of this lineup. Even as a Mariners fan, Zach Neto is one of my favorite young players in the entire league as an 87 overall 24-year-old, and you can't do much better than a shortstop that hits for power. But then of course, we've got Logan O'Hoppe in a lineup full of right-handed hitters, and then a few wild cards like rookie Christian Moore and former first-round pick Nolan Shanwell. While the addition of Grayson Rodriguez does make this rotation a lot better, it is definitely the weakness of the team, as Yusei Kikuchi may be a former all-star, but he's only 76 overall and is gonna keep progressing from here. We're gonna need to improve this rotation, especially after trading Tyler Bremner, but now looking at the bullpen, that's where we get to one of my favorite players. Where on earth is Ben Joyce? This guy is absolutely nasty and regularly exceeds 100 miles an hour, and I definitely think he's our closer of the future. We're up against the White Sox on opening day, and while they're not a good team, we're still gonna lose the series, and that's a really bad start to the rebuild. Fortunately though, because it is the 2025 season, we have the #2 selection in the draft, so if there is a generational talent in the class, we have a really solid chance to get him. Looking through the options though, I'm not sure if anyone's gonna be generational, although Jensen Rausch looks pretty close to it. With a ceiling of 99 potential and 78 overall, and a low power grade of 0, I feel like he could be a really high ceiling player. He's the first player we're gonna scout, and just imagine for a second if we started the rebuild out with a generational second baseman. That would be absolutely incredible. That's a guy that could pair up with Zach Neto and form a solid middle infielder for years to come. And after the first 2 weeks of the season, we are 4-16, but fully scout Jensen Rausch, who's not generational. While he's not the player that I was hoping he would, he's still a really solid option at #2, although I want to keep looking and seeing what else is out there. Usually I don't like taking a first baseman high in the draft, but considering what Nick Kurtz did this year, I might be changing my tune on that just a little bit. Ray Padden is 22 years old and looking like an absolute beast, so we're gonna scout him and see what happens. The long-term future of Nolan Shanwell is not certain, so I want to make sure we get another first baseman in the building, and sure enough, Padden is the class's best player. Now I'm hoping that does change as we scout more players, and Buddy Gillespie looks like an absolute gem. He's got a max potential of 99 and super low ratings elsewhere, looking like a third baseman with some power. We're throwing him on the board. One thing that's going to make this rebuild extremely difficult for Los Angeles is the division that we're in. Now obviously there's the Mariners, who are one win away from going to the World Series and have maybe the best young rotation in baseball, along with of course the Big Dumper. Then on top of that, while the Astros did have a down year, you can never count them out, and I think the same can be said for the Rangers, who just won the World Series a couple years ago. Add in the Athletics, who arguably have the best young offensive player in the league, and we have our work cut out for us. Our farm system is in rough shape, especially after trading Tyler Bremner, making this draft extremely important. 2 weeks later, we finished scouting Buddy Gillespie, and he goes up to #3 on our board. That's an absolute gem. Assuming that we take either Ray Padden or Jensen Rausch in the first round, the hope would be that he falls to 43, although it's really not likely. Now I'm definitely thankful that scouting's going well, because on the field, rebuild, we're exactly the team we expected to be. We're 15-29 and 10.5 games out of first place. Because we're in this for 20 years, I'm looking for the highest ceiling prospects possible, and while I'm a little disappointed in Doss's ceiling, he's likely gonna have high 80s or low 90s potential, which is okay. Usually in these draft classes, I rely pretty heavily on a good starting pitcher class, but going through this one, I'm not really seeing too much outside the first round. I still have to finish scouting players from the East, so even though someone like Milt Quinn looks really good, I'm still not sure how good he's gonna be. One player who could be an option at number 43 though is Roberto Quevedo, who looks pretty solid. It seems that he has a really good ceiling, and the floor should also be somewhere around mid-60s overall. At this point in the process, we've already finished discovering pitchers, so I want to go ahead and get another position scout. Just as a quick tip for you guys, the way that I've been handling this is going back into the scout screen and then hiring the best position scout that I can find. The first draft of a long rebuild like this always seems to be the most important, as it sets the foundation for the rest of the video, which is why I'm going to show you guys quite a bit of this one. One thing I'm noticing in this first class is that there's a lot of really good outfielders, especially later in the class, which is really going to help us out. We're scouting both Jason Hoffman and Kenny Garcia. At the start of June, we're still really struggling with a 28-41 record, and looking at the stats, while Mike Trout is doing his thing and is still progressing, it seems the rest of the offense has kind of been disappointing. Joe Adell has been solid at best, but after that, there's only a few more players with an OPS above 100. It would be great to see former first rounders like Nolan Shanwell and Christian Moore step it up, but as low 70 overall players, they have a long way to go. Then of course, in the rotation, Yusei Kikuchi's having the season you would expect, but scrolling down further, I see that Grayson Rodriguez has been our best starter. He has both the lowest ERA and WHIP on the entire staff, so even though it's way too early to tell, it seems they might have won the Taylor Ward trade. Rodriguez is under team control all the way until 2030, so there's plenty of time for him to develop. After 1 week of scouting our outfielders, they're gonna stay around the same ranking, which means that I should scout them another week. With a weak pitcher class, it is really possible we could be targeting both players, as we just won a series against the Yankees. That will bring us to 33-43, so our season is slowly turning around, and checking out scouting, there we go. Jason Hoffman is the 44th best player in the class. He's definitely gonna be my primary target later in the draft, as we've done a really nice job of finding a combination of blue chip players near the top and late round gems. We're putting together a really nice class of outfielders, but I wish that the infielders was the same story. I'm not really seeing much here. There's pretty much nothing later on in the draft, which is a huge concern, as our farm system has pretty much no depth at any of these positions. Going forward to the final week though, I did find a couple of gems in center fielder Richie McGrath and 20-year-old shortstop Vaughn Terry. Then along with him though, there's also 22-year-old John Ramsey, and I wouldn't take this draft ranking super seriously. The big reason for that is he is 22 years old, and I found that age negatively impacts your draft rating. We're gonna scout Ramsey for 1 more week to see if that rating improves, and just because I don't have any other options, we're gonna scout a few more of these 22-year-old draft grandpas to close out scouting. Our record is terrible, so we're simming straight to the draft and jumping into what is the most important moment of the entire rebuild so far. While my target with the number 2 overall pick is Ray Patton, I don't know who the Nationals are gonna take, so there's a chance he might not be available. In the event that he's not though, I do have a backup option, although it might not be who you expect. Even though third baseman Bud Gillespie is not supposed to go until pick number 58, he is one of my favorite players on the board and is likely not going to last to our next selection. With the massive contract of Anthony Rendon, we could really use a cheap, controllable third baseman, and Gillespie would be exactly that. Then on the pitching side of things, this is looking like a really solid closer class, and then I also found the number 2 player in the class in starter Mark O'Rourke. He could be a candidate to fall into the later rounds, but out of everybody though, my favorite pitcher on the board might be Freddie Ibarra. Like I said said before, age is just a number. Don't let that fool you. This guy is gonna be absolutely incredible. Even though the board says he's 53 in the class, I've seen this case so many times where if he was 18, he would likely be the number 1 or number 2 ranked player. With our first selection of the rebuild though, I'm gonna be taking a position guy no matter what. The Nationals go with the catcher, leaving Ray Patton to fall right into my lap, and I could not be more grateful. I see it a lot in MLB The Show where the consensus best player does not go number 1, and in this instance, it works out for us. We get a high ceiling and high floor first baseman. Alright, so we got our guy in the first round. Now my question is, how long will Gillespie stick around? Almost no chance until 43, right? I can't imagine that happens, so I'm gonna sim to our next selection, and sure enough, he is gone. There's still a lot of really good options on the board though, as closing pitcher Kana Watanabe looks to have a really high ceiling, but considering that we do have Ben Joyce, I might want to look in another direction. Before this draft is over, we definitely need to get another infielder, but as you can see, we're almost entirely out of scouted options, so this might be the time that we take Von Terry. I'm gonna do exactly that. We're selecting the 20-year-old out of Idaho. He's gonna have a really high ceiling, and hopefully the floor is good enough to develop quickly. I consider that to be a home run selection, and now at number 81, we're getting an insane value in Freddie Ibarra. As I mentioned before, if he was 18 years old, he'd probably be a top 3 player in this class, and I'm expecting his ceiling to be sky high. This is a great pick. I'm definitely glad we took the shortstop when we did, because we're out of scouted infielders. So now with my next selection, I think I'm gonna turn to the outfield. There's a lot of really solid options here, but my favorite of the bunch has to be Jason Hoffman. We're gonna sim forward, seeing that our discovery pitchers are still on the board, along with Hoffman, who I'm gonna take right here. That is an easy decision. Aside from missing out on Gillespie, I feel like this draft could not be going much better, as we're now gonna take the number 2 player on the board at number 141. This was a dominant draft that we're gonna end off with high ceiling South Korean pitcher Steven Chung. That really could not have gone much better, as we're 39 and 57 at the break, and while we're in last place in the division for a very good reason, I feel like the influx of talent that we have coming in is extremely exciting. This season is all about the development of our young players, as both Nolan Shanwell and Christian Moore are developing, along with Grayson Rodriguez, who's starting to live up to the hype as the former number 1 prospect in baseball. He is up to 81 overall at 25 years old, and he could be a really solid building block moving forward. We've been so bad this season that Zach Neto is our only all-star, and I'm pretty sure it's only by default. He is not having a good season. Despite being the best young player on this team and arguably the best overall player on this team, he's only hitting .230. These are not the numbers you want to see from your shortstop of the future, but fortunately, he has a lot of time to figure it out. With pretty much no chance to make the playoffs, we're gonna sim all the way to our draft results and see what's happening. This is the most important moment of the video so far, as some of these players could make up our World Series core, and that is exactly what you want to see. Starting off at the top, we found a legitimate franchise first baseman in Ray Patton, who at least in my opinion has a Nick Kurtz caliber ceiling. That is awesome. His defense and athleticism are not going to be good, but the one thing you got to look for from your first baseman is power, and Patton has a ton of it. That is a slam dunk selection at number 2 overall, and I cannot be more excited about his future. Then moving forward to the next pick, knowing it was a thin infield class, we stuck with one of the best position guys on the board in Von Terry. He had a sky-high ceiling and is coming in at 57 overall. It's going to take some time for the fielding to develop, but more than likely, he's either going to slide to second or third base, or maybe even move to left field. He does have the arm strength to be an outfielder, so we'll see what happens with that, as with our next selection, we struck gold. Just like I said, Freddie Ibarra is an absolute gem. As I said, if you see a 23-year-old whose draft rank actually improves, he's going to be an absolute dog, and Ibarra's coming in with not only 98 potential and 65 overall, but also a good walks per 9, which is the most important important stat for a pitcher. This guy's gonna be an absolute animal, as we then closed out the draft with 3 straight 91 potential players, including a 65 overall pitcher in Mark O'Rourke. That will give us 3 starting pitchers above 90 potential as we solve our rotation issue, and also add a trio of very high potential position guys. With that draft alone, I'm gonna call season 1 a success, simming all the way to the end of the year. Los Angeles would finish in last place in the division with a 63-99 record, which would be the second worst in the American League, only behind the White Sox. On the bright side, that's gonna put us in really good standing for another high draft pick, as we will have a shot to get the #1 pick. Checking out the awards, it was kind of a weird year as the Giants won the World Series, defeating the Astros. That is not a matchup I anticipated, as Brent Rooker also won the MVP. That was certainly unexpected, as he beat out Tarek Skubal and Yordan Alvarez, and then in the National League, Shohei Ohtani, that's not a surprise at all. I think it just goes to show that anything can happen in MLB The Show, as Nick Kurtz does repeat as Rookie of the Year. While we have a young core of players that we're waiting to develop, I do have to say that I'm a bit concerned about Zach Neto, who experienced a significant decrease in contact. The combination of Mike Trout's massive deal, along with spending big on Anthony Rendon, is not going to give us any flexibility in free agency. Out of all the organizations in baseball, the Angels may be one of the worst at spending their money, and at least in this rebuild, that's going to significantly limit us. Going into the offseason though, we're already faced with a huge challenge of replacing our manager. With Dave Roberts available though, I feel like it would be irresponsible to not try and keep him in LA, as that would be absolutely game-changing. I'm offering him a 7-year deal for $60 million total. That would be a slam dunk hire for this pretty young Angels core, but in the event that we don't get him, there's plenty of other good options on the board that would also save us some cash. The Angels are a really unique team to rebuild, because usually when a team is this bad, they have a ton of money, but the Angels are just a nightmare all around. They can't afford any of the top free agents on the market. I do want to note though real quick that the reason that Tarek Skubal and Kyle Tucker are in the same class is because the roster that I'm using has updated contracts. Because of that, players that are in next year's cycle, like Tarek Skubal, were given 1 year left before free agency, while Kyle Tucker has simply just not signed yet. That does make things a little bit more interesting for this year, as this free agency class is pretty much a combination of this year's and next year's classes in real life. Therefore, this would be a really good time for the Angels to add some core players to their roster, but aside from Bo Bichette, who would really just be a second base / DH, they can't afford anybody else. In this cycle though, I'd really like to get a new third baseman, and I feel like we have to at least make a pitch to Murakami. We're gonna enter the sweepstakes for him, but I also want to put another third baseman on the board in Alec Boehm. Then on offense, we could bring back Taylor Ward to replace Taylor Ward, but of course he's gonna be a little too expensive for what our budget is right now. For this move, I'm thinking something a little more low profile, like Christopher Morel. I know he kind of fell off the face of the earth, but he's still 26 years old with B potential and can play all over the diamond. I think that's a risk worth taking for $1.3 million a year. After simming a week, Murakami is not interested in LA at all, which is unfortunate, but at least we have solid interest in Alec Boehm. I'm just gonna assume we don't get Murakami and give Boehm exactly what he wants. He's at least a bridge player at third base. I know that move's not a slam dunk, but to be fair, we're not in the position to make a huge splash. Unfortunately, simming forward, I know I wanted to add Aaron Savale, but apparently we don't have enough money. With only $6.2 million left in the budget, it just goes to show how much of a poverty team this really is. We have a lot of bad contracts on the team, but if there's any one of them that we can actually clear up in the offseason, I think it's the deal for Robert Stevenson. He is entering the final year of a 2-year, $11 million per year deal, and he's actually coming off a pretty solid season. He could really be an asset for a contender, and after looking through the offers, the best deal is for this shortstop, Ernesto Becerra. He's 51 overall at 23 years old. That being said, it's unlikely that he's going to become anything for us, but at least we're able to get this contract off the payroll. With the money we freed up, I found a player who's really interested in signing with the Angels in Trevor Larnach. I know he got Christopher Morella's good def, but Larnach also has B potential and is a much more polished hitter. He's only asking for 2 years, $5.6 million, but with all the motivation, I feel like we can get him for a lot less. We're just gonna offer him this contract and see if he he accepts it. He would be a starter for the Angels right away, and he will be joining the Halos. This was not the splashiest offseason in the world, but with our current payroll situation, I feel like we did the best we could. We're gonna make one more move, signing Luke Weaver to a 3-year deal and move on to season number 2. We're not gonna be much better in season 2, but at the very least, we got some solid bats in the middle of the order in the additions of Alec Boehm and Trevor Larnach. Most notably, Larnach is a lefty, and we really needed that because last year Nolan Shanwell was the only guy. I'm really hoping that Shanwell can take the next step to at least be a solid DH, but with the addition of number 2 overall pick Ray Patton, who is debuting as the 13th ranked prospect in baseball, it seems that his clock could be ticking. Patton is 22 years old with elite power and potential, and he's starting off right away with the Salt Lake Bees in AAA. He became the highest ranked prospect in the organization, but right after him, there are several more recent draftees who also made the list. If it wasn't for last year's draft class, we would not have a single top 100 guy going into the year, so I'm really fortunate that we nailed that draft. While I'm excited about the farm system, I do believe that the big league club is a step above where it was last year, and with so many of our biggest contracts coming off the books next year, like Anthony Rendon, Chris Taylor, and Jorge Soler, we could have a chance to do some real damage. I think that Patton and 2 of our pitching prospects are about a year out before reaching the majors, so we're also going to try to move through season 2 pretty quickly. With the number 3 overall pick, we have a chance to make another splash at the top of the draft, and I'm once again looking for generational talents, and Bill Mathis could be generational, although those defensive numbers are a bit too good to be true. One player who could make sense though is first baseman Lee Chang. As you can see, he's projected to have 99 potential, and while I'd really prefer not to take another first baseman, that might be just the way it works out. I feel like this guy's rating is gonna skyrocket, so he will be the first player that I scout. Because it takes these players so long to reach the majors, you kinda just have to take the best player available and hope it works out, as sure enough, Chang's the number 1 player in the class. There's still a lot of scouting to get done, but as of right now, if Chang was on the board with our first pick, I would definitely want to take him. Looking into second round options though, I just found Dalton Spoon, who's another guy who just makes sense. After drafting a really good corner outfielder last year, I'm looking to expand the outfield, and Spoon would be a great option at 41. We're gonna scout him for 2 full weeks and see how good he is, as at the start of May, the Angels are 12-22. No surprise, that's last place in the division, so we need to get some better players, and there we go. Spoon is number 7 on the board and is likely gonna have mid-90s potential. That is a really solid option for the second round, but now I want to go later into the draft to find some infielders. One player who could be a gem for us is Roscoe Humphreys, who has a max potential of 99. We're gonna throw him on the board and also let our pitching scout look at the central region. With the Angels in last place, I'm just gonna fully focus on scouting as we simulate another week finishing Humphreys' profile. Despite taking 2 infielders in last draft, I would say that the infield is still our biggest weakness, so we really need to add to it in draft number 2. At the start of June, we are 24-36, which is still in last place and right on par with where we were last year. While our record is about the same though, the stats kinda tell a different story, as Mike Trout is absolutely raking. He is turning back the clock with a 911 OPS, and that was just an unintentional 911 joke. I didn't even mean to pull that one. You could say that Mike Trout is once again the bomb, but the best player on the team, thankfully this year, has been Zach Neto. We are not even to the All-Star break, but he's leading the team in home runs, RBIs, and pretty much every other offensive stat. Then in second place for RBIs though is none other than Christian Moore, who is entering his second season with the team. While his OPS has not been good, at least he's hitting for power, and aside from his contact versus left, he is still developing at 23 years old. He is certainly a player to keep an eye on, along with Logan O'Hoppe, who has just been disappointing. Despite being one of the best young catchers in baseball, the former 23rd round draft pick has not been able to find his swing in this rebuild. After putting up a 622 OPS last year, it is down to 567 this season. While Trout and Neto have looked extremely impressive, the rest of the offense has taken a nosedive off a cliff, as going even further, Shanwell has not been good, and the signing of Alec Boehm is also looking like kind of a bust. There's still plenty of time to turn things around, but I'm not liking what I'm seeing, although the rotation team does kinda make up for it. I think it's fair to say that Grayson Rodriguez's elbow is not a problem, as he's having another really good year. That is really nice development for the 26-year-old, as another young guy is also putting together a quality season in Ryan Johnson. Then in the bullpen though, it's definitely been a little underwhelming, and I think I might need to draft a closer. As you guys remember, I had a lot of hope for Ben Joyce coming into this franchise, but a 7 ERA at 25 years old is not gonna cut it. I decided to send him down to AAA just to get his stuff right. With those stats in mind, we're gonna proceed with scouting, adding an infielder to our board who's also a switch hitter. However, I did just forget one of the rules of this video. Before we get any further, I gotta spin from the wheel of chaos. I can't believe I forgot to do that, but it's gonna give us a 1 trade limit in Season 2. It definitely hit us hard last year as we were forced to trade Tyler Bremner, but fortunately this season, it was a little bit kinder, not really affecting us in any way. With only a month to go until the draft, we just scouted third baseman Brian Leahy, who seems to be a solid option later on in the draft. Despite being a solid prospect though, he's only ranked number 108, so I'm hoping for a bit better from Derek Blackman. We also still need to finish the profile on pitchers from the East, but going through the options on our board so far, nobody has dethroned Lee Chang as the number 1 prospect. Draft number 2 is going to be just as important as draft number 1, considering how long this rebuild is, and we have a chance to make a huge splash with Lee Chang. I know we already took a first baseman, but this guy's the best player on the board by a long shot, and bringing in another high ceiling, high floor first baseman can only help an offense. We're targeting him with the 3rd overall pick, but in the event that we can't land him, I'd be perfectly fine with this starting pitcher. It seems that left-handed pitcher Salvatore Valle has a pretty similar floor, so I wouldn't be unhappy with either player. However, I would also be comfortable taking someone like Dalton Spoon at number 3, as there's no way he's gonna last to the 2nd round. At some point in this draft, I also really need to take a closer because Ben Joyce is simply not gonna be it. Fortunately for us though, that works out really well for us in this draft, as we discovered not 1, but 2 closers who both look to be pretty good. Then from there, it's just gonna be about adding more depth and more firepower to a farm system that's already really good. All we have to do is wait 2 selections to get our guy, and with the number 2 overall pick, the Rangers take Calvin Sim. That leaves the number 1 player in the class, Lee Chang, to fall right into our lap. That is the 2nd year in a row that we've taken a first baseman, so I'm really hoping I don't look foolish. Now simming to our next selection though, let's see what's left on the board. At number 41, there are a few good starting pitchers on the board, but I don't want to miss out on the chance to add a potentially elite outfielder. We are taking Dwayne Liriano, who's number 16 on our board. That should be a good selection, especially because one of the pitchers I passed on is still available. Just looking through the rest of the board, it does seem that he's the best player available, so I'm going to take him right here at number 80. Now in round 4 though, I do want to take a position player, and I'm going to go with the best one on my board in Mark Matoyer, I think is how you say that. That is a really solid value, getting the number 91 prospect at 110. And now at number 140, I'm taking another solid value, making sure we get our closer. Dennis Oliver is the number 37 player on the board. And now in round 6, we're closing things out with what I hope is a really high ceiling starter. We may have waited until the end, but we did take our 2nd starting pitcher, and I'm feeling very optimistic about this class. That felt like another successful draft, bringing us into the All-Star break where we're 43 and 55. Checking out the stats on the year, Zach Neto has not slowed down alongside Mike Trout. Honestly, aside from them, I've been really disappointed with the performance of pretty much everybody on the team. Despite having Neto and Trout, we're only 26th in the league in hits, and then on the pitching side of things, we're 28th in ERA. That's just not gonna cut it. With 3 of our starters on hot streaks going into the break though, I am very curious to see if we can recover, as improved play from Jose Soriano and Tanner Houck would go a long way. Grayson Rodriguez did barely sneak into the All-Star game for us, which is amazing news, and I think it's fair to say that they won that trade with the Orioles. Since we're in last place, I do plan to just sim to the draft results, although the team's trying to make it interesting. If we can win a series against Seattle, it might be worth keeping a closer eye on, but of course we cannot do that, and now also split one with Texas. Then, right after beating us in a series, the Mariners had the guts to offer us a terrible deal for Zach Neto. While Ryan Sloan is a really good prospect in real life, he's only B potential in MLB The Show, and the Mariners are going to have to do a lot better than that if they want our shortstop. We're going into August with a 50-63 record, which is 21.5 games out of first place. Also, with most of the offense on a cold streak, including Mike Trout, I think it's safe to assume that we're once again not going to make the playoffs. Logan O'Hoppy's still playing terrible, and aside from Zach Neto, this offense has pretty much no firepower. If there's any positive to this season, Grayson Rodriguez is continuing an all-star level season and could even be in the running for the Cy Young. Checking out the awards, Aaron Judge is leading for AL MVP, while Christian Yelich is trying to dethrone Ohtani of his third MVP in a row. That is huge news out of the NL, as Tarek Skubal's looking for his third Cy Young in a row, and Grayson Rodriguez is indeed on top in the AL. He continues to make the Orioles look silly and is now sitting at 85 overall with the chance to win a major award. Now we're going to take a look at our second draft class, where we need to hit big on several players. It feels weird starting out taking 2 first basemen, but clearly it is gonna be worth it. Lee Chang is generational. I don't know who's gonna play first base between him and Patton, but Chang is gonna be up at the show very soon. Everyone remember the name Lee Chang, because this man's gonna turn this rebuild into something special. Chang was better than I expected, while Dwayne Liriano was a little bit worse, so I suppose that balances itself out. I will say though that Liriano is still 89 potential, so a very serviceable player, but maybe not a future superstar. Then after that though, we took 90 potential players for the rest of the class, with 2 more project players in Antone Cortez and Mark Metoyer. Both of them are 92 and 93 potential respectively, and then in round 5, we struck gold with Dennis Oliver. In a draft where we already took a 78 overall player in Lee Chang, we get a 93 potential, 76 overall player in Dennis Oliver. Earlier in the season, I said that I was looking for another closer option, although I did not expect to get someone as good as Oliver. Seeing a gem like Oliver this late in the class makes me 100% confident that this draft is even better than the one in season 1. Also, with a lot of money coming off the payroll, I'm feeling extremely good about this team's future and want to invest in Zach Neto long term. We are giving him a 6-year deal worth $108.5 million. Then after that though, why not go and do the same thing with the Cy Young frontrunner Grayson Rodriguez? This will be a 5-year deal worth $82 million. Now those 2 contracts might seem like big investments, but for players like Neto and Rodriguez, they're extremely team friendly. While the future is bright though, we're still significantly under 500, and this month of August is not gonna help. We did improve by a few games, getting to 68 and 34 on the year, but we have a long way to go before we can catch any of the teams in this division. Most notably, the Athletics' young core is developing extremely nicely, getting this team to the playoffs, as they won the division with the best record in the American League. This is the team I'm gonna have my eye on going into the playoffs, but alongside them, the Astros and the Mariners both made it as wildcard teams. Despite having 3 playoff teams in the AL West though, it was the Dodgers who won the World Series, taking down the Kansas City Royals. After losing out on the MVP last year to Brent Rooker, Aaron Judge came back, winning his 3rd MVP of his career, and then in the National League, it was Shohei Ohtani going for the 3-peat in the National League and winning his 4th in a row if you count the one with the Angels. That is 5 total MVPs for Japanese Babe Ruth, and I'm curious if in this 20-year rebuild, anybody is gonna even come close to that. Going to the Cy Young Award though, I do see that Grayson Rodriguez is nowhere to be found. I'm really hoping that he did not get lazy after signing that extension, but getting knocked entirely out of the top 3 is not a good look. Checking out his stats on the year though, while he did fall off a bit towards the end of the season, this was still the best season of his career, and I think the future's bright. Speaking of a bright future, we have Mike Trout under contract through 2030, and even though he's 34 years old, he is still progressing and just put up his best season in several years. I would hope that all baseball fans can agree with me when I say that nothing would make me happier than seeing a late career resurgence for Mike Trout. This was a guy that lost so much of his prime to injury, and I can't help but wonder what if. Now in the offseason, we have 4 of our worst contracts coming off the books, which might actually give us an opportunity to invest back in this team. That being said, Mike Trout's age, along with the fact that we have 2 potential superstar first basemen baseman coming up, we really want to make some aggressive moves to improve this team. While our rotation is still not in playoff shape, we have a lot of B potential guys that we've been developing, along with a few A potential guys who we took in our first draft. Freddie Ibarra has 98 potential, while Marco Rourke, I believe, has 91. Both players progressed significantly in the minors and should be on the fast track to the major leagues. The positions that would make sense for us to upgrade in free agency would be starting pitcher and probably second base, where I see there's Brendan Donovan. It's going to cost us a lot of money, but we do have the budget now to go after him, and I feel like this is a move that would make sense. Overall, I feel like this free agency class does leave a lot to be desired, as I'm not really seeing any players that are great fits for the team. Getting a left-handed bat like Jake Fraley would be interesting, but he's asking for $10 million a year and is already 31. One player we are going to bring in, though, is B potential utility man Willie Castro, who's down to 68 overall after sitting in free agency last year. I did not realize that nobody signed him, but as a switch hitter who can play all over, I feel like it would be good to bring him in. That did not cost us a lot of money, as we gave him a 3-year deal worth about $11 million total. He is the first free agent we're signing, but it's not going to be as easy to get Brendan Donovan. He is in high demand by several teams, including the Giants, who just won the World Series 2 years ago. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer to offer him a contract, but in the meantime, I'm also going to add another player to my board in Nolan Jones. He is now 3 seasons removed from an apparent breakout year with Colorado, but things have not looked good for the guy ever since. He also only costs $5.3 million a year. Simming forward, though, we might be in trouble for Brendan Donovan, as we only have a 57% interest, and it's now or never. He is a legitimate star player, but he's sending the Angels to the phone, and I have a bad feeling we didn't get him. He signed with the Mets. That is a huge strikeout in the offseason, but at least we get Michael Kopech, and on top of that, we still have a chance to add Nolan Jones. Coming into the offseason, I said that I wanted to make a splash, but due to a series of unfortunate events, it just didn't work itself out. So just like last year, we're hoping the draft lottery can save us, but we go down one spot. That's going to send us into the Rule 5 draft with very little success, especially after Nolan Jones signs with the Cardinals. I don't know what we could have done to make this offseason better, but it feels like everything that possibly could have gone wrong did go wrong, as now in the Rule 5 draft, I see the Phillies let Justin Crawford become available, and that's going to be an easy pickup. Despite wanting to make a move in the offseason, we're entering Season 3 with the team looking pretty much the same as it did at the end of last season. That means we're counting on bounce-back years from guys like Joe Adell and Logan O'Hoppe, along with some further development for Christian Moore. Then on the bench, we're adding brand new Rule 5 draft pickup Justin Crawford, along with a backup catcher in Adrian Del Castillo, and finally, Willie Castro. While that is the lineup at the start of the year, though, we have some top 100 prospects who are likely going to be seeing the field this season. One of those players is none other than 3rd overall selection Lee Chang. He's a generational talent coming in as the #1 prospect in all of baseball, and I'm really optimistic that we can get the combination of him and fellow first baseman Ray Padden up to the show. Then along with those two guys, I also really like the chance of seeing Dennis Oliver this year, who we just drafted in the 5th round. As for the rest of the farm system, we're in very good shape, as we have 12 guys in the top 100. Along with the 3 guys I already mentioned, though, we could see Freddie Ibarra and Matt Rourke both come up to the show this year, depending on how the rest of the rotation plays. There's a lot of young options in the room, though, so they're definitely gonna need to earn their spots. We're starting Season 3 with a series against the Astros, who made the playoffs last year, and no surprise here, they're able to sweep us to start off the season. That's gonna send us into the draft, where we're picking at number 6 this year, as our draft pick progressively gets worse and worse. We lucked out last year finding a generational talent, and this class also seems to have one in Killian Hagen, with a max potential of 99 and a max overall of 81. Along with that, though, all the ratings are looking extremely well balanced, which is the biggest indicator to me that he might be generational. I still have to scout him, but finding generational talents in back-to-back draft classes would absolutely rock, as looking forward, this position player class looks pretty good. The reason I say that is I just found another player with a very similar profile in Kyle Fleming, indicating that there might be more than one generational talent. There are times on the channel where I'll legitimately go an entire rebuild without finding a generational player, and then there's times like this where I get multiple all of them in back-to-back seasons. This class has been absurd so far, and it might not be done delivering. This catcher also has a chance to be generational. The skill set is extremely well balanced, and on top of that, he has a minimum of 0 in his speed and his stealing. I've only seen 2 generational players in one class a handful of times, but in this draft, picking at number 6 overall, I might have just found 3 of them. I could be faced with the very tough decision of figuring out which of these players I'm gonna take, but after scouting the center fielder, it does look like he's generational. Now we're moving on to the catcher, and even though we're losing games, I really don't care about that. I just want to scout these generational talents. We're advancing straight through the month of April into the month of May, where we do see that Elton Granger has a very similar profile. With the continued struggles of Logan O'Hoppe, the catcher might actually be the best option, especially because O'Hoppe's hitting free agency in 2029. We also missed out on William Contreras in the offseason, so I feel like that would make the most logical sense. Now we're scouting what could be the final generational player of the class, and sure enough, after finishing his profile, Kyle Fleming is generational. Midway through June, we're sitting at 26 and 43, but because we're probably getting a generational talent, I really want our young players to come up and get some MLB experience. That being said, I'm calling up Lee Chang and Ray Patton just as I promised. Then along with those guys though, I'm also gonna bring up Dennis Oliver, and finally for the big cherry on top, we're calling up Freddie Ibarra and Matt O'Rourke. To make room for those guys, we're shipping away Yusei Kikuchi to the Padres, who could really use another starting pitcher, and in return, we're picking up the best prospect they'll give us. Also, even though Alec Boehm's been one of our best players this season, hitting .314 with an .865 OPS, he's in the final year of his deal, and it's not likely we bring him back. Just to get something for him, we're trading him to the Chicago Cubs in exchange for a 22-year-old potential reliever. That is officially going to kick off a new era of baseball in Los Angeles, as Ray Patton will DH and Lee Chang will hit number 4. Then in the rotation, we're sliding Freddie Ibarra and Matt Rourke into the 3rd and 4th spot respectively, and finally, Dennis Oliver will start out as a standard reliever. While those moves might not make us that much better right now, the future is very promising, as to my surprise, we're actually winning a lot of games towards the end of June. Checking out the stats on the year, it does seem that Mike Trout has finally started regressing, at least in terms of his ratings, although it's not really affecting him on the field yet. His .981 OPS is the best on the team by a long shot. After that though, I must say that the offense is once again looking inconsistent, as Zach Neto can't decide who he wants to be, and the development of Christian Moore has been incredibly slow. Add in another disappointing season for both Joe Adell and Logan O'Hoppe, and my decision to bring the young guys in the room is looking a lot better, especially with Lee Chang raking. He has come out of the gate with a bat on fire with a 1,034 OPS and already has 11 RBIs in just 11 games. We'll see how the season goes for the rest of the rookies, but now that the young guys are starting to get to the show, I cannot be more excited about this team's future. I know we're still in last place in the division, but I feel like we're in first the way we're getting all of these generational talents to fall right into our lap. Now obviously, we do have to wait a little bit for one of them to drop, but my target is catcher Elton Granger. I'd be fine with any one of these 3 players, but I feel like Granger fits the biggest need on our team, as Logan O'Hoppe is not our catcher of the future. That is the position that is the most difficult to come by, so I'm really hoping that we can get him to drop, as Kyle Fleming goes number 1. That is already one generational player off the board, and I honestly don't have a plan B. This is the MLB draft, so in the event that I don't have a plan B, I can't just drive to Walgreens to go get one in the morning, and that is not good. Killian Hagen is off the board, leaving one selection until our pick. They took a catcher, but not mine. Today is a good day, as Elton Granger falls right into our lap, and we're taking a generational talent. That is back-to-back years taking a true blue chip player, and I really feel like we've made these first round picks count so far. This has been incredible. Now just for full disclosure, I kinda sped through scouting, so I have no idea what the rest of the class looks like. I'm just gonna full send it and sim to our pick and see that there are some solid players still on the board. None of the position guys that I scouted are even close to our selection, so while I could reach, it doesn't seem to make much sense. Then looking at the starting pitchers, I'm not really seeing any options aside from the discovery guys who I can probably take later. That being said, I'm gonna turn to one of my biggest mottos in MLB The Show: when in doubt, take a closer. Usually these guys are gonna be pretty good, so I'm gonna take the only one who's not 21. Hopefully that was the right decision, but simming forward, I see that one of my favorite players in the class is gone. My favorite position player in the class just went right under my nose, so I'm taking the next best player available. That is a huge loss for this draft class, as that center fielder was a player I really wanted. That guy had Mike Trout potential, and I'm kinda disappointed I took the closer. If I had a time machine, I would totally go back in time and change that pick. That's gonna take us right into the All-Star break, where we have a 39-57 record, which is pretty on pace with previous years. Mike Trout is still cooking, while Zach Neto's finally starting to heat up, but most importantly, I want to see what's going on with our first baseman. After a torrid start, Lee Chang is still hitting for a lot of power, although the average has gone down. Then in the rotation, it's way too early to tell on O'Rourke or Freddie Ibarra, but they still have very bright futures. Despite the roster changes, the Angels are still in last place at the start of August, although I don't expect that to change this season. Next year though, we're starting a brand new era with Elton Granger joining the team, and as expected, he's 99 potential at 80 overall. That is another elite selection, and even though he's a right-handed bat, I really couldn't care less. That is a generational catcher. If that was our only pick of the draft, I would go to sleep happy tonight, but we went above and beyond, taking 3 more 90 potential guys right after that. While I do kind of regret taking Tom Park, he's still a 90 potential at 70 overall, and should at least have a chance to be our closer of the future. I really can't complain about that selection, especially because we followed it up with Anthony Wilson and Matthew Lopez. Now just because I'm a perfectionist though, I gotta find the guy that we missed on, as the Nationals took 2 99 potentials. Back to the center fielder though, I want to find out what I missed on. Honestly, he's not as good as I thought he was. I was thinking he would be like 95 potential, but he's only coming in at 90 with a 54 overall. That being said, I'm actually perfectly okay missing out on him. The game did not punish us, although we did miss out on this 97 potential right fielder, who ended up going in the 3rd round. All things considered though, we put together a really solid draft class, and while I wouldn't put it on the same level as season 2, I'm really excited about next year. We're gonna sim out the rest of the season, hopefully getting some more development for our young players, as in the month of August, we're actually winning a lot of games. For what feels like the first time of the entire video, we are not in last place going into September. Mike Trout continues turning back the clock, putting himself right into the MVP race, and then going over to Rookie of the Year. No shock here, Lee Chang is the front runner. I was ready to just call it a season and sim forward, but suddenly Logan O'Hoppe seems to know that he's about to lose his job. This man is doing wonders for his trade stock right now, getting up to 8 potential, and he's on a hot streak going into September. This is the first time of the video that he's shown any signs of knowing how to hit a baseball, but I'm not complaining. I want all of it. Along with him though, Rookie of the Year frontrunner Lee Chang is also raking, alongside free agent signing Willie Castro. Then in the rotation, Grayson Rodriguez is having another all-star caliber year, and then looking at the young guys, it seems that Freddie Ibarra is starting to turn things around as well. Honestly, at this point in the year, it doesn't really matter what these guys' stats are, as both of them have improved substantially throughout the season, and this year is all about getting them some innings. The same thing can also be said for Dennis Oliver, whose ERA is pretty bad, but he's still developing nonetheless. The Angels would finish 75-87, which sure enough is 2 games above Texas. Let's go. Once again, the Athletics were absolute menaces, while the Mariners also snuck into the playoffs, but it seems the gap in our division is starting to shrink just a little bit. With old man Mike Trout playing like he's on the juice, and having 2 young generational players at our disposal, all I can say is watch out for the Los Angeles Angels in the coming years. While Trout did not finish in the race for MVP, I'm fully expecting Chang to win Rookie of the Year, although McGonagall comes out of nowhere. That would have been great to have for bragging rights, and honestly, I probably should have just played him a whole season. We would have gotten a first-round pick. By waiting so long to call him up, I definitely fumbled Lee Chang's race for Rookie of the Year, but above all else, I'm just really excited to see him take over this offense. We just got Mike Trout's best season since probably 2019, and on top of that, we just drafted another dangerous young player. Add in the fact that Grayson Rodriguez is under contract for the next 5 years, and I think this train's moving. Freddie Ibarra and Matt Rourke both got some really nice development, and the bullpen should only get better as we call up some more relievers. It was another MVP season for Aaron Judge, while Pete Alonso finally dethroned Shohei Ohtani. That was a long time coming, as Shohei had won 4 MVPs in a row, and of all people to take it away from him, it's the polar bear. That being said, this was a pretty weird season, as the Braves won the World Series, beating the Mariners, but we have some big decisions to make in the offseason, with Joe Adell and Trevor Larnach hitting free agency. Those are 2 outfielders who haven't necessarily been the best for us, but are nonetheless serviceable starting caliber players. Larnach's going to cost about $10 million a year to bring back, as Adell is going to be about double that, as he is 87 overall. We do need a left-handed bat, so I'm offering a pretty cheap deal to Trevor Larnach since it is team friendly, but as for Adell, I think our best move is to just offer him the QO and move on. I would be perfectly fine with him accepting it and coming back for another year, but in the event that he doesn't, we took Justin Crawford last year in the Rule 5 draft, and I want to give him a chance to be our full-time center fielder. We're going to find out if Larnach or Adell's coming back to the team, but with many big contracts coming off the table in the last couple seasons, like the one with Anthony Rendon and Jorge Soler, we have a lot more money to spend this offseason. With Christian Moore not cutting it at second base, one player that I'm really interested in bringing in is Ozzy Albies. He's been in the league for a very long time, but even then, he's still just 31 years old, and he's a switch hitter. That is exactly the type of player I'd be happy to bring in, so I'm going to add him to the board and make him our top priority. Keep in mind that Logan O'Hoppy's entering the final year of his contract, and while he has been pretty inconsistent with us, he did improve his stock and had a pretty solid end to the year. With Elton Granger being ready to play right now, I'm not going to waste any time getting him up to the show, so O'Hoppy is very much on the trade block. The team that makes the most sense as a trade partner for Logan O'Hoppy are the Milwaukee Brewers, considering they lost William Contreras. This is really good news because looking at their roster, I think we can make a trade that makes sense for both sides because they are loaded at our weakest position. With the exit of Joe Adell, we desperately need another outfielder, and because the Brewers have a ton of them, we're going after Isaac Collins. Not only is he a very well-balanced player, but he's a switch hitter who could also play second base. The combination of his contact, versatility, and team control over the next 3 seasons make him easily the best return package for Logan O'Hoppy, so we're going to take this deal 1-for-1. We're a much better team with the addition of Collins, but I'm not done there. I want to go out and get Ozzy Albies, who has a 75% motivation to sign. He wants a 5-year deal, but because we're the only team that's interested, we're going to try to throw him out a lowball deal and just see if he accepts it. It is very unlikely that he signs with the Angels right out the gate, but apparently the lack of interest motivated him to just take the deal. After striking out last offseason, we've made 2 big splashes with both Isaac Collins and Ozzy Albies joining the core. We've got some really exciting young players who are already at the show like Lee Chang, so building the team around him alongside recently drafted catcher Elton Granger is so important. Now entering season number 4, I do believe that this is a playoff team as we've built a dynamic lineup with the additions of Ozzy Albies and Isaac Collins right at the top of the order. Those are 2 veteran players that can hopefully help out the development of some of our younger guys like Lee Chang and Ray Patton. Then batting 4th, as we've seen through the entire rebuild, we've got Mike Trout, and I'm curious how much he's going to regress this season. This lineup is night and day from season 1, and I have not even called up one of our most important players of the season. While I do like Adrian Del Castillo as a backup, Elton Granger is the catcher of the future, as we were able to get lucky with our 2nd generational talent in a row. He's starting at the MLB level immediately. Baseball's #1 prospect is going to start out hitting 7th for us on opening day, and we'll see if that changes as the year goes on. Then on the bench, we have recently re-signed Trevor Larnach, along with a handful of former top 100 prospects in Justin Crawford and Christian Moore. Then in the rotation, we have our 1-2 punch of Grayson Rodriguez and Jose Soriano, along with these second-year players Ibarra and O'Rourke at 3 and 4. Then for the relievers, we've got a handful of high-potential guys who I'm really excited about, including Dennis Oliver, who still has a chance to develop into a closer. I do feel like his best fit with the team is as a medium-length reliever, but with a potential at 22 years old, I don't want to rule anything out. Then for the setup man, as I do every year, I'm going to give Ben Joyce one more chance just to see if he can get it together. After him though, it's kind of a similar story with Michael Kopech, as both players can throw gas unlike anybody else we have in the bullpen. For the time being, that puts us in a really good spot, but now I need to spin the wheel, and this could potentially be really problematic. If you didn't already know, throughout a season in franchise mode, the CPU is allowed to propose trades to your team, and as you would probably expect, these trades are consistently some of the worst deals I've ever seen. Thanks to the Wheel of Chaos, I'm forced to accept the next one I see, which means that we could easily lose a player like Lee Chang for a bag of chips. I'm gonna jump into opening day playing the first game in the entire franchise. We're getting to see firsthand if Grayson Rodriguez is really an ace for us, and while he had some trouble to start the game, he does not give up a run. For some reason, the CPU decided that Trevor Larnach was in the lineup, but fortunately, he drew a walk, loading the bases for Neto, who flies out. That was really good contact, but it went right to Burleson, and now there's a dinger. Unfortunately, Grayson Rodriguez is showing us that he might not be the ace of the future, as his defense bails him out of this jam. So now it's time to lock back in, but Stevenson goes yard again. Unbelievable. He has single-handedly given the Rays the lead, while our offense only has one hit. We desperately need to change that as we walk the bases loaded, bringing up Mike Trout with 2 outs, and unfortunately that's a ground out. We strand the bases loaded for the second time of the game, and now it's up to the bullpen to hold it down, and immediately there's 3 more runs. While I still believe in this team, I'm a bit more nervous after getting shut out by the Rays. Then, advancing to the start of April, we're 2 and 6. I have no idea what's going on with our team early on, but we really need to figure it out because our one goal this season is to make the playoffs, and right now we're playing into the number 1 pick. Going into scouting for the first time, we're picking number 8 in the first round, which is the lowest first round selection we've had so far. That being said, we need to make the most of this, selecting the best player we possibly can, and at least so far, my favorite target is Elvis Ramirez. While I don't believe that he's a generational talent, he has the ceiling to be a really good player, and considering that third base is our biggest offensive need, this has a chance to work out extremely well. Obviously, we've drafted some really good offensive players so far in the rebuild, but so far, Lee Chang and Ray Patton are not having good seasons. Patton especially really needs to figure things out, as he's hitting 0.69, and while 69 isn't a funny number now with the emergence of 6-7, it's alarming to see that Patton's having an even worse season than last year. We really need that to turn around. Patton was the first draft pick of the entire rebuild, while Lee Chang was taken last year, and then of course, our most recent first round pick was none other than catcher Elton Granger. Unlike the 2 first basemen, Granger's actually playing okay and should be the front runner for Rookie of the Year. While it's way too early to look at the stats, the young players need to step it up as we continue losing games, including 2 series in a row, and make that 3. That will drop our record down to 6 and 15, and I honestly never expected that. Going back to scouting though, we have finished the profile on Elvis Ramirez, and he's the number 1 player on our board. It is very likely that he comes in with mid-90s potential and a low 70s overall, making him another great candidate to start for us on opening day. As the number 1 player on our board though, that does significantly decrease the chance that he ends up being available at number 8, so we'll have to find another option. If we don't turn things around quickly, I'm gonna have to start sending some guys down, as immediately we go on a 6-game win streak. Look at that. The moment that I threaten to change things, that happens, as we try to scout a backup option in the first round, and it does not go very well. Considering that this position player class is looking pretty weak, we might actually have to take a pitcher in the first round, which I guess wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. After struggling to open the year, Lee Chang is finally on a hot streak as our number 3 hitter, while Nolan Shanwell has been on fire the entire year. With 2 young first basemen in front of him, he's been regulated to DH, but clearly he's not happy about it, taking out his anger on the baseball. Through the first couple months of the season, he has a slugging percentage above 600 and an OPS above 1000. While that's encouraging though, we're still waiting on Ray Padden to come around, and Elton Granger is on a cold streak. Then in the rotation, it looks like the 2 second-year players, Freddie Ibarra and Matt O'Rourke, are both really struggling. Ibarra especially might need to be sent down sooner rather than later. A 10 ERA is not gonna cut it. Despite their struggles though, we are on a 7-game win streak, so I'm gonna give them some time to turn things around, as we have a chance to win another series against Texas, and there we go. That is gonna send us back to 500 at the end of April. Going back to scouting, I'm finding it really tough to find position players worth looking at least outside of the first base position. There's a bunch of diamonds in the front and the back of the class. Now it does feel like things are starting to turn around as we go into the month of May above 500 and win another series against Tampa Bay. In just under a month, we have amazingly turned our entire season around, winning another 3 series against the A's, the Blue Jays, and now the Tigers. That will send us to 31-22, which is only 1 game back in the AL West. If the season ended right now, the Angels would indeed be a playoff team, sneaking in as the second wild card. It definitely took a while for us to get going, but now that we are, I can say that our success has not been an accident. We have several guys on hot streaks, including Nolan Shanwell and Lee Chang, along with a lot of other players who all have OPSs above 700. Maybe the most encouraging part of the season so far is that Ray Padden and Elton Granger are both playing extremely well, with Padden putting up 30 RBIs and 10 home runs, while Granger seems to be getting better as the year goes on. Then in the rotation, I was really close to sending down both Freddie Ibarra and Matt O'Rourke, but I'm glad I didn't. Both players are now on hot streaks, and I'm hoping that means their worst baseball of the year is behind them. Now that we're approaching the middle of the year, I want to take a look at awards, and one thing I did not have on my bingo card was a Nolan Shanwell MVP. This is a player who pretty much everybody thought was going to be on the trade block when we got both Ray Padden and Lee Chang on the team, but instead of falling into a bench role, Shanwell has exploded as a DH. He is putting up incredible numbers at age 26 and is making it pretty much impossible for me to trade him. Hitting .355 as a DH is simply absurd, as he's second for the batting title, and we also have the leader for reliever of the year. Then scrolling over, I'm looking for rookie of the year though, and Elton Granger is in second place. I'm really hoping he can jump Walker Jenkins, because if he can, we get an extra first round pick, which we haven't had for the entire rebuild. With the resurgence of our offense, we're officially in first place at the start of June. Then on the scouting end of things, like I said before, the draft class is certainly not the strongest, but I still feel like we're taking advantage of it, finding some really solid third basemen, along with a few other position guys who I'm really interested in. With a month to go until the draft, I'm feeling pretty confident as we just keep on winning. It took 10 games for us to lose our first game of the month of June. One thing I do need to mention is we have not been offered a trade yet, but we need to keep in mind that I still have to accept whatever one comes at us next. That could potentially result in us losing a player like Nolan Shanwell, or maybe one of our other 2 first basemen. The Wheel of Chaos is going to keep things interesting as we're simming a series against Seattle and do split it. Right on cue, there's our first deal. The Giants are offering us a trade, and it's for Ozzy Albies. We just signed him. Right after signing him, we're going to have a brand new starting second baseman in Tyler Fitzgerald, and the second addition to the deal is Griff McCary, a starting pitcher who's already 28 years old. That is a terrible deal, and the Wheel of Chaos really screwed us over. Losing Albies halfway through the year is a huge loss, especially because he was batting second. That being said, we're going to slide Christian Moore into the lineup against righties, so now our lineup looks something like this, with Moore batting 9th and Zach Neto moving up to 5. I'm not planning on keeping Fitzgerald after the year, as even though he has 95 speed, he's a little bit too expensive, and I do believe that Christian Moore has more upside. Now immediately after trading one of our best players, we gotta go straight into the MLB draft, where my #1 target is Elvis Ramirez. While it would be great if we could land the #1 player in the class class for the third straight season, though, I don't think it's gonna happen. We're picking at number 8 overall, and because Ramirez is so good, I would not be surprised if he went off the board really early. While that's unfortunate, I would be perfectly happy with Christopher Hernandez, though, who looks like a really good 18-year-old pitcher. That's my plan in the first round, but then after that, it gets a little more complicated, as I'm not seeing that many good players on the board. Fortunately for us, though, the third base class is loaded, and there's a really good shortstop in Eloy Pena, who we should be able to get in the second or third round. The Texas Rangers have the number 1 pick, and they waste no time taking my guy. Just like that, we're forced to change gears, but fortunately, Christopher Hernandez is available and will be my selection. That is a really nice way to start out the draft, and now in round 2, I'm going with the best value on the board in Eloy Pena. While he's not projected to have a super high ceiling, he is a switch-hitting shortstop and is the number 15 player on the board. That was our best option, and now simming to the third round, I'm curious what's left. At pick number 73, I am taking the highest ranked position guy on the board in third baseman Pedro Santana. Then in round 3, we're gonna do the same thing, taking center fielder Edgar Chavez, who should have a potential in the mid-90s. Now to close out the draft, with no position guys left on the board, we're gonna take starting pitcher Freddie Fernandez, followed by closing pitcher Sheldon Harvey. Losing Ozzie Albies is definitely unfortunate, but I feel like that draft does make up for it. At the All-Star break, though, while we're still in first place, we've lost 8 out of our last 10 games. I'm not sure who to blame the losses on, as we did trade Ozzie Albies, but as long as the offense can stay hot, I'm not too concerned going into the second half. Players like Lee Chang and Ray Patton should only get better, while Mike Trout continues to regress. On the bright side, though, it looks like Mark O'Rourke has finally figured it out as a 21-year-old starting pitcher, and as a left-handed pitcher who we drafted in the 5th round, his development has gone a lot better than I was hoping for. On the other side of things, though, while Freddie Ibarra was on a hot streak for a while, considering he's already in his mid-20s, he needs to figure things out, especially because he has 98 potential. The pitching has been really up and down all year long, and while we do have an all-star in the bullpen, I would like to see some more consistency. One player I am expecting to make it, though, is Nolan Shanwell, and what a story for the 26-year-old. Despite bringing in 2 first-round first basemen in a row, Shanwell's having the best season of his career and earns the first all-star nod of his entire career. After him, though, I'm not seeing any more all-stars, so the offense has a lot more work to do. We desperately need to turn the month of July around as we start off with a series win against Minnesota. That will bring us into the series against the Rangers, who were one of the worst teams in baseball last year. We are tied up at 5 apiece in the 9th inning, and they have the bases loaded, looking to take the lead. This is a big series for the Angels, and Luke Weaver gets us out of that jam. That is a clutch performance that's gonna give us the chance to walk this one off. Nolan Shanwell has been so good for us this season as our lone offensive all-star, but that's another flyout. Then after that, another out would send this to extras, where we do walk it off thanks to Elton Granger. That will give us 2 series wins in a row out of the break, but the biggest games of the month are still on the horizon as we're taking on the Mariners and the Astros. They're the 2 biggest threats for our division lead, as they are right behind us, and we're facing both of them back to back. We split a series against Seattle earlier in the month, and this one's gonna come down to the final game, which we win. Thanks to great performances on the mound from Mark O'Rourke and Freddie Ibarra, we win that series and move on to Houston. Considering that we have Lee Chang and Ray Patton, it might feel silly to do this, but I believe in Nolan Shanwell long-term as our DH, so I'm gonna offer him a 4-year deal worth just over $12 million a year. With so many young players on league minimum deals the next few seasons, we can afford to keep our best players around, and the deal for Shanwell is pretty team-friendly. While Shanwell is no longer in the MVP race, he is in 3rd place for the batting title, but as far as other major awards go, we do still have the frontrunner for reliever of the year. Yoel Payamps was a pretty underrated offseason signing for us, but so far he has proved himself to be an elite closer, posting absolutely insane numbers. Not only is his ERA insane, but he's also 2nd in the entire league in saves. He has been electric, along with Elton Granger, who is slowly but surely catching up to Walker Jenkins for Rookie of the Year. Going back to this series against the Astros, we beat them 11-1 in the first game before losing losing the second, and Game 3 is coming down to the wire. Now that we're in Season 4, this is the type of game I want to jump into moving forward and somebody get Tyler Fitzgerald off the team. Thankfully, because of his speed though, he's able to beat out that throw to first base, and Justin Crawford scores the tying run. Now, just like in the Seattle game, we're counting on our bullpen to hold it down, and with a guy on second, Dennis Oliver's looking to put them away. Thankfully, he gets out of the jam, so now we could be going to extra innings once again. Unlike in the Seattle game though, we're the road team, which means we're gonna have to take the lead and then keep it. Now we've got Yoel Payamps in the game trying to close it out, but there's a tying double. That is extremely unfortunate, although Willie Castro follows it up with a double of his own, and we're gonna get another chance. We are leaving Payamps in the game, and once again, he lets us down. That is so unfortunate, as we're once again going to the 12th inning, and the Astros are gonna get the chance to win it, which they do. That is an extremely rare crash out for Payamps, so now the very best we can do is tie this series. With Freddie Ibarra on the mound, we do win 8-0, but getting another win would have been really nice to bring us up to 67, and I swear to God, I see you in the comments, don't make a 6-7 joke. Simming to the start of August, we still have a 3.5 game lead though, so I'm not panicking just yet. More than anything though, I am very curious to check out the draft class, and our first couple picks were not as good as I was expecting. I was hoping they would have potential in the 90s, but it seems our scouts didn't do a super good job. Considering how high they were ranked, I'm extremely disappointed in both players, as I was really expecting Pena to be 90 potential, and considering Hernandez was the number 2 player in the class, I was hoping for roughly 95 potential. Instead though, we get stuck with 2 players who might just be trade bait for the future. Thankfully though, we did make up for it with a first round talent in Pedro Santana, as after missing on the first 2 players in the draft, we came back and nailed our next few selections. Barack Medwick is 95 potential with 52 overall, while Santana is 97 with 57. Those are 2 very good selections, as then we took Freddie Fernandez, who's only 86 potential, before ending the draft with a really solid value in Sheldon Harvey, who may also have B potential, but he makes up for it by being 70 overall. That draft is hopefully going to add some more top 100 prospects to an organization that already has 11 guys there, along with several players who are right on the cusp like George Lombard Jr. With another draft class out of the way, we're going to sim the month of August trying to keep our division lead, although it's not working out super well. After losing 3 series in a row, we're only 3 games up in our division, and we're closing out the month with a series against the Los Angeles Dodgers as we actually beat them. That sends us into September with a 5.5 game lead, but checking out the stats, several of our players are suddenly on cold streaks. That includes Lee Chang, who's on pace for a 40 home run, 100 RBI season, along with Nolan Shanwell, who we just signed to an extension. It's been a really nice year for the offense, but I also have to give a lot of credit to the rotation, where former 5th round pick Mark O'Rourke has actually been our best player. Both him and Freddie Ibarra have turned their seasons around in the second half, while Grayson Rodriguez is also doing his thing. That being said, I feel pretty good about our chances to win the division, especially as we start the month of September on a really strong note. With a 6-game lead over Seattle, it's pretty much guaranteed that we win the division, as we do clinch the West with a 93-69 season. Along with winning the division though, I'm a little surprised to see that 93 wins gives us the best record in the American League. Surprisingly, the second best team in the American League were the Rays, and looking at the scope of the entire MLB, we had the 3rd best record. Really not bad for year 4 of the rebuild. I gotta give a lot of credit to Lee Chang for securing a 43 home run, 113 RBI monster year. We may have 3 first basemen on the roster, but all of them were great contributors, with Nolan Shanwell being the 2nd best player on the team, and Ray Patton getting better as the year goes on. Then, even though we all know he's regressing, Mike Trout put up another really respectable year, giving us no reason to think about replacing him. However, while we can talk about the offense all we want, I feel like one of the main reasons we won the division was our rotation, and specifically Freddie Ibarra and Matt O'Rourke. O'Rourke specifically was the best player on the staff at only 21 years old, and seems to have a really bright future. Looking at awards, unfortunately, Yoel Payamps could not hold on to win reliever of the year, and it's gonna be the same story for Elton Granger. While he did put up really good numbers for us, playoffs, it was a really nice season for Walker Jenkins. Our first playoff series of the video is gonna be against the Boston Red Sox, and they are no joke. On top of already having Roman Anthony and Garrett Crochet, they bolstered their offense with the addition of William Contreras. That is gonna make them a really scary team, as they have a top-notch outfield, along with a rotation that is certainly not one to be messed with. We're in the year 2028, so this is actually the first time the Angels have made the playoffs in 14 seasons. We're hoping to beat the Red Sox, but unfortunately, we're off to a pretty bad start as they extend their lead, making it 5-1. While I really appreciate what Grayson Rodriguez has done for us, I think the writing on the wall is that he is not the ace, but this game just got a lot more interesting. We just scored 2 runs and loaded the bases, so Ray Patton has the chance to be the hero, except I whiff at the slider. We unfortunately leave the bases loaded, but it didn't seem like it was gonna matter. Despite being the #1 seed, the Red Sox made us look silly, so now we really need to win this next game, and I'm starting our most reliable rotation man, Marco Rourke. We're putting the season in his hands, and immediately he's making me regret my decision. He just gave up 3 runs in the first inning, and once again, we strand the bases loaded. This has been a really disappointing showing for the Angels, but now Christian Moore puts us on the board. There are 2 guys on for Mike Trout, and the pitcher just saved a run. That was the last thing we needed with only 1 guy away, and that could be trouble for us, although Trout makes it up later. The Angels have rallied back with 3 unanswered runs, and now we have a chance to walk this off. We're in the bottom of the 10th, where Ray Patton smokes a single with 1 guy on. That's gonna give Willie Castro a chance to win it, but unfortunately, he doesn't make good contact. That means we're once again relying on the bullpen as Payamps gives up the go-ahead run. It's been a really close game, but that could be the end, although not so fast. Right when it seemed like we were out, the Angels walk it off. That is gonna completely change this series, making it 1-1, as we also win game number 3. Getting a win in that 3rd game is a huge deal, because now we're on the mound against Garrett Crochet, just needing 1 win over the next 2 games to move on. If we lose to Crochet, we're going to be going to a winner-takes-all game 5, but we start out strong with an RBI single. Christian Moore continues to impress at the plate, while Jose Soriano's gotten off to a really strong start. If we're gonna win this game, we need that type of performance, but right when I say that, he gives up 2 runs. That means we're gonna need another run against one of the best pitchers in the business, although he comes out of the game and we tie it right back up. That's gonna give us a real chance to win this game, although Boston strikes right back, and this one's gonna come down to the wire. We had so many chances to win this one, but ultimately left too many runners on base, so now it's all gonna come down to a winner-takes-all game 5. With the season on the line, I have to make a really tough decision of either starting Grayson Rodriguez or Marco Rourke. While Rodriguez is the better player on paper, he got absolutely blown up in the first game of the series, and considering that he also had a worse regular season, I think we're gonna be gutsy and roll with O'Rourke. Regardless of what happens in this game, it's very likely he will be our ace of the future, and that is a great start. Lee Chang delivers a 3-run shot as O'Rourke is still holding it down in the 3rd inning. The 21-year-old just had his no-hitter broken up in the 5th, so we're still leading by 2 runs in the 7th. We are now just 1 inning away from advancing to the ALCS, and that is a shutout. Starting O'Rourke felt like a massive risk, but he delivers the best season of his career, giving the Angels their first playoff series win in a really long time. Superstar first baseman Lee Chang started the fireworks, but ultimately this was Marco Rourke's game to lose, as he came in going 6 innings, only allowing 1 hit the entire game. He solidified himself as our ace moving forward, but now we're taking on the Rays. While their squad is not quite as good as Boston's on paper, I would not underestimate them. The combination of Junior Caminero and a really good rotation is probably the reason they were the 2nd best team in the AL, and I'm not going to write this off as an easy victory. Early on, we're trailing by 2 runs and make it 5. What a nightmare from Grayson Rodriguez. Despite being a really solid player during the regular season, he has been completely useless in the playoffs. It's 8-0. Just like in game 1 of the Boston series, we get absolutely manhandled, so now we really need to get one back, simulating Game 2, and win by the same score. That's gonna put us back in the series as we do lose Game 3 and now Game 4. Now the Angels are facing elimination, trailing 3-1, but Mike Trout clearly wants this, putting them on the board first in Game 5. Their ace McClanahan is on the mound, looking to send them to the World Series, but there's another run. After being traded for Ozzie Albies, Tyler Fitzgerald finally did something, and now Christian Moore's gonna follow up, clearing the bases with a double. That would help us stay in the series, but we still need 2 more wins in a row. We're gonna get to those next couple games, but before we do, I do need to give a massive shout out to Grayson Rodriguez for bouncing back. He's really struggled, but he put together an 8-inning performance with 10 strikeouts. Now we're counting on Freddie Ibarra to send us to Game 7, although he gives up the first run of the game. He has been a really up and down player, but Lee Chang's gonna bail him out with a 2-run shot. That is a clutch play from our best player, but you gotta be kidding me. Shortly after taking the lead, we're playing from behind and the offense has completely stalled out. It's gonna take a huge rally for us to win this as Trout starts out the 8th with a double. Now with the season on the line, Patton's gonna walk as we stay alive for Willie Castro, who's gonna ground into the final out of the inning. That was so close to sneaking through, but instead it's gonna come down to the 9th inning. We're going up against the reliever of the year and do get on base with a walk, so we're looking for a big play from the top of the order. Another walk gets 2 on the board, and now the bases are loaded. That officially puts our season in the hands of Mike Trout, who is 36 years old and has been with the Angels for his entire career. You couldn't write a better story than this, especially as Trout drives one into right center field, and that is gonna walk the game off for Los Angeles. After not seeing the playoffs in 14 seasons, the dinosaur Mike Trout sends the Angels to Game 7. He has turned back the clock, getting the Angels 1 win away from the World Series. It has been an absolute blast to rebuild this team around Trout, and now him and this young core of draft picks have a chance to play for the World Series. Despite all the chaos of the series, it's all going to come down to this final game against the Rays, where we're definitely putting O'Rourke on the mound. At least that was my plan, as looking at our rotation, the only guy who's ready is Jose Soriano. We have no choice but to trust Jose Soriano, and that's a lot of singles to start the game, as the Rays are already on top. Then add in another 2 RBI double, and we're suddenly in a lot of trouble. This is not the performance I was hoping for, as Soriano's already out of the game, and Lee Chang gets us on the board to make it 4-1. Due to the lack of depth in our rotation, our season could be ending in Game 7 of the ALCS, as the Rays pretty much seal it right there. Despite nearly pulling off the 3-1 series comeback, the Angels cannot get it done, losing Game 7. While that is disappointing though, we're still ahead of schedule in the rebuild, and I'm looking forward to the future. Simming to the offseason, the Rays would go on to win the World Series, and I didn't expect that. They just beat a really good Dodgers team that signed both Kyle Tucker and Alex Bregman. We only have 1 pending free agent in Luke Weaver, and while I'd like to bring him back, he is 35 years old, and simming forward, he's gonna test the open market. While Luke Weaver's been a really nice player for us though, I do have to say that $8.9 million is a heck of a lot for a reliever who's not even a closer. Above all else though, I think after seeing this team in the playoffs, it's become extremely clear that our biggest need is getting another quality starting pitcher. With several prospects on the way up though, we don't need to offer somebody a long-term deal, which is exactly why I'm going after Sandy Alcantara. While his recent years have not been great, I do feel like with a potential and really good per nines, signing him to a 2-year $40 million contract is not a very high risk. He's gonna be my #1 target, but in the event that we don't get him, I'm also going after a couple relievers. With several players like Isaac Collins and Christian Moore hitting arbitration though, I'm not sure how much money we're gonna have left. Simming forward, we do get some good news on Sandy Alcantara, who has a 69% motivation to sign, so I feel like we have a little bit of room to offer him a lowball deal. We're going 2 years, $15 million per year. It would be insane if he accepted that, as his decision is coming in, and right off the bat, he signs with the Angels. There's a good chance that we might be done with free agency after that, as we added a great starting pitcher in Sandy Alcantara, Alcantara and retained our only free agent. While we're a very similar team going into next season, there's a few developments that we need to take note of, most notably getting Alcantara, but also the order of our starting rotation, which is now led by 22-year-old lefty Marco Rourke. With a potential, he's only going to get better, and the same thing goes for Freddie Ibarra, who's going to slide in at number 3. Then in the bullpen, former starter Michael McGreevy's going to be our long reliever, while Luke Weaver's back on a 1-year deal, and Dennis Oliver is the highest rated player in the pen. I know I've been talking about O'Rourke quite a bit, but Oliver's another player who definitely has a bright future, and has very quietly put up 2 really solid seasons. Then in the lineup, while things are going to be pretty much the same, George Lombard Jr.'s taking over at third base, while Christian Moore is firmly the opening day starter at second. After struggling for several seasons, I kinda wrote him off, but after we traded Ozzie Albies, he came in and was absolutely fantastic. This job is fully his to lose. We're launching straight into season 5 with a pretty big challenge against the Phillies, and after losing on opening day, we're able to come back and win the series. That is a big deal as we're able to start 2-1, but quickly lose 2 more series against the D-backs and the White Sox. We really need to get our season back on track as we're taking on the Rangers and do rebound with the series win, so we're 7-7 midway through April. It's been a pretty weird start to the year as Zach Neto has not quite gotten going, and the same can be said for Lee Chang. Both players are on cold streaks, while it seems that our best offensive players have been Christian Moore and Isaac Collins. Both players have been phenomenal, while Elton Granger is also on a hot streak, entering his age 19 season. Then in the rotation, Freddie Ibarra's off to a really good start, and while Marco Rourke's heating up, we're definitely still testing to see if he can be the ace. To start this scouting period, we found a really nice one in Casey Garrett, who's a switch hitter with a really good ceiling. Before I get any further though, I do need to spin the wheel of chaos, which is only gonna allow me to draft high school players. While there are a lot of good college players in the draft, at least that's gonna narrow down our options, as we can only take 18-year-olds. Just like we've seen in previous seasons, the division is extremely close this year, and we're taking on the Astros. Fortunately, they were no problem for us, as we win 3 games out of 4. There's still 1 more game to go in the series though, so we have a chance to go for the sweep against a team that could be a threat for the division title. Another win could extend our lead against Seattle, and once again, it was domination. That will give us a 2-game lead in the division, with the Athletics and the Mariners still holding on. Unlike last year, the Athletics could be a real threat for the division, with Kurtz, Rooker, and Wilson all peaking, but they also went out and signed George Kirby away from Seattle. This is a brand new era of Angels baseball led by Lee Chang and Elton Granger, and the fact that we got 2 generational players in back-to-back classes is insane. With those 2 players still on league minimums, we've been able to extend players like Zach Neto and Grayson Rodriguez, along with further improving the rotation with Sandy Alcantara. With the rest of our division struggling, we have a chance to really capitalize in June as we lose a series to the Cardinals, but rebound with a win against Detroit. Looking through the class, there are quite a few 18-year-old pitchers, including this guy, Will Lengerick. He could be a really nice option with our second selection, although we still need to scout the rest of the pitching class. We're about 4 weeks from the draft, so we still have plenty of time to solidify the board before we get there. We're entering July with a 54-29 record, although the Athletics are keeping this race interesting. However, with a good chunk of our team on hot streaks, I think it's reasonable to expect us to only get better. We're tied with the Dodgers as the highest scoring offense and are in second behind them for hits. That is extremely good company to be in, as looking at the rotation, we're in 6th for ERA. We are not even to the All-Star break yet, and Elton Granger, at 19 years old mind you, already has 23 bombs and 73 RBIs. That's just ridiculous. Very fittingly, our first full season of July is against the Dodgers, and they're gonna wipe the floor with us. We've got a long way to go. Fortunately though, we did win a lot of games in the final week before the draft, and with the number 28 selection, I'm planning on taking the best starting pitcher available. While there are a few draftable position guys in what is overall a really weak class, most of the prospects that I want aren't going to be taken until the second round. That being said, expect a starting pitcher pretty much no matter what, and simming to our selection, there should be a really nice one available, although Rick Madsen and Billy Ponce both went ahead of our pick. While that's definitely disappointing, disappointing, I still feel like Scotty Hayden can be a good pick here, so we're not gonna overthink it and just make him our selection. Then simming forward, I plan on taking Casey Garrett with our next pick. So with this selection, I'm going with the best position player on the board in center fielder Greg Beavers. That's a really good value at number 59, and simming to round 3, I'm really hoping my catcher's still there. Sure enough, he is gone though at number 106, and now I have to completely pivot. I could double up at starting pitcher, but with that board not looking very good, I think we're just gonna go BPA. We take another center fielder. While it would have been great to draft the catcher, I'm not gonna complain about another outfielder, especially with the age of Mike Trout, as now in the 4th round, there's only one position guy left on the board, and I guess we're getting a catcher no matter what. Now in round number 5, my favorite discovery pitcher is still on the board, so we're selecting Jake Koo. That's an extremely good value at 164, and there's nothing left on the board at number 193. We're just gonna take a flyer on this reliever and hope for the best. That will send us into the All-Star break, where even though we're 61 and 35, we still face great competition from the Athletics. They have not let their foot off the gas, so our road to another division title might be more difficult than I planned. With the way the offense is playing though, Elton Granger could win an MVP in his 2nd season, and then after him, there's several other players above 800 OPS. Unlike last season where we only had one offensive all-star, I'm actually expecting to have a lot more as Dennis Oliver does make it as a closer. That will be his first all-star appearance of hopefully many in his career. Then going over to catcher, sure enough, Elton Granger is in the game, along with Lee Chang at first base. That is already one more offensive all-star than we had last year, and we're gonna add one more with Isaac Collins. With all the success we're having on and off the field, we're just gonna jump straight into the second half and just hope that the Athletics don't catch us. This is certainly gonna help. We just went on a huge win streak, getting to 70 and 37. With our team in a really good spot, I want to figure out how we can improve the lineup even more, but the only positions we can really upgrade at are second and third base. While George Lombard III has not been the best for us this season, he's still above 700 OPS, and he's still developing. While I still want him to play third base for us, he might be someone who ends up on the trade block, especially with Vaughn Terry getting closer to the MLB. That being said, I would be interested in adding something at third base this season just to increase our floor, but it doesn't feel like any of the players on the trade block are even worth going after. Mark Vientos is the best option available, but even then, he's having just as good of a season as Lombard. With no deadline move making sense, we're gonna sim straight into the month of August, where we can finish signing our draft class and just move on to the rest of the season. I really didn't care about Julio Mota, but he does sign with the team, giving us a full class, and aside from the final selection, this is about as slam dunk as it gets. Jake Koo ended up being one of the best players in the entire class, if not the best player in the class, coming in at 99 potential and 59 overall. That is even better than the scouts expected, and we also complimented him with 4 guys 90 potential or above. Taking 2 center fielders in rounds 2 and 3 ended up being the right decision, while Scotty Hayden is also coming in with 94 potential. My goal for this draft was to address the pitching, and we did that and then some, getting 2 really quality starters for the future. While I do feel really good about this team's future, players like Lee Chang and Elton Granger are not going to be on league minimum deals for much longer. Being more specific, Lee Chang is in his 3rd season, which means that he finally enters arbitration next year. I'm making it a priority to lock down both him and Elton Granger for the future, and my starting offer will be a 7-year, $175 million deal for Chang that I'm gonna have to increase just to get him to sign it. I'm offering him 7 years, 182, and there we go. That's gonna get the deal done, and with Elton Granger leading in the American League MVP race at 19 years old, this might be the cheapest an extension for him's gonna get. This is gonna be another massive contract, but honestly, just because he's a catcher, let's go 12 years instead. We're gonna make him an Angel for the rest of his life. 12 years, $222.5 million, Granger's gonna sign it. We may have just thrown out a lot of money, but with Mike Trout's deal coming off the books in a couple years, I feel like that's a really smart way to reallocate that money. Entering the final 2 months of the season, Elton Granger's trying to hold on to the MVP, winning the award at 19 years old. Aside from him though, though, we do not have another major award winner, although I think Granger winning the MVP would more than make up for that. Hopefully he can turn things around quickly as we're going into New York and win both series. At the start of September, it seems that we're finally increasing the gap over the A's, as they've lost 7 out of their last 10. Checking out the stats, it seems that Granger's still on pace for the MVP, although he might be facing some competition from Lee Chang. He has come out of nowhere, tying him in RBIs, and is now in front of him for home runs. As for the rest of the team, though, I would say the same players are still performing, including 37-year-old Mike Trout, who's now all the way down to 79 overall, but is still putting up a really respectable season. Then in the rotation, the addition of Sandy Alcantara is really making a difference, while it seems that Grayson Rodriguez is finally playing like an ace again. We have a chance to completely bury the A's to start September, and that's going to be another series win. This team is just unstoppable. With half a month to go in the year, we've extended our division lead to 9 games, so I think our best option now is to just sim out the rest of the year and see if Elton Granger wins the MVP. We would finish out the year with a 105-57 record, and no surprise, that's gonna be good for the #1 seed for the 2nd straight year. The American League is simply not that strong. For what it's worth though, we did have the best record in baseball, beating out the Brewers and the Cubs. But now for the moment of truth, opening up awards, Nick Kurtz is the MVP winner. I don't know where Elton Granger went, but he's not here as Lee Chang places 2nd. While Granger did slow down in the back half of the year, he still had a really good 19-year-old season with 38 bombs and 111 RBIs, although now I'm seeing that Ray Patton also hit 40 dingers. We had 3 guys over 100 RBIs, with Isaac Collins not far behind at 95. Just a ridiculous season for the offense. There's no doubt in my mind that this team finished 1st in the league in runs and probably every other offensive category in the game. And while our pitching was less consistent, Freddie Ibarra did end with a record above 500, despite putting up a 5.32 ERA. Going into the playoffs, Mark O'Rourke and Grayson Rodriguez will definitely be our 1 and 2 starters, but then after them, Sandy Alcantara is the only guy that I'm confident with. Here's the lineup going into the playoffs, as we are absolutely stacked at the top with a trio of 100 RBI players. We have a 1st-round bye for the 2nd straight year, and no surprise here, we're going up against a team we're very familiar with. Not only are we going up against the MVP, but they've also got a dinosaur of their own in Brent Rooker, who's somehow only 3 years younger than Mike Trout. Just like Mikey though, he's still going strong with back-to-back-to-back-to-back 100 plus RBI seasons. This guy is an absolute monster. Then after that, they've also got Jacob Wilson, while George Kirby leads a pretty respectable staff of pitchers. They're as complete of a team as we're gonna face, and there's a great reason they're ranked 2nd in MLB in terms of strength of roster. This series should be anything but a walk in the park, although we start out on a really strong note. We take a 3-0 lead, although it didn't take long for them to add 2 of their own. That's gonna keep them competitive, although Granger does extend our lead once more, as both teams' aces are on the mound, but there's been pretty much no pitching in this game. Back-to-back homers is gonna end this one as Patton goes deep again, so the Angels start out strong with a 9-4 victory. That's a really nice start to the playoffs, although now we have to take on George Kirby and lose game number 2. That's gonna set us up for a really important game 3, as the winner of this one's gonna be 1 win away from moving on to the next round. So far though, this one's been an absolute sweaty as we're leading 1-0. We are now 3 outs away from closing this game out as Dennis Oliver's in the game and does secure the 1-0 victory. That means the Angels need just 1 more to move on, and just because we can, we're gonna simulate game 4 with Freddie Ibarra on the mound as we advance to the ALCS. We have made it to the LCS for the 2nd straight season, but this time we're taking on Cleveland. first. They will be the 4th team we face in the postseason, and while their roster doesn't look amazing on paper, I'm not going to underestimate them after what happened last year against Tampa Bay. We're not going to waste any time jumping right into this one and splitting the first 2 games before winning game number 3. It took a game for the offense to come alive, but we scored 7 runs in game 2, followed by 6 runs in game 3. That's going to give us the advantage as Freddie Ibarra's on the mound and has already given up a run, but here come the Angels, driving in 5 in the 3rd. That should be more than enough support for Ibarra, who's actually had a pretty good game. The offense exploded all over Cleveland in a 7-1 victory where Ibarra went for 7 innings, only giving up 4 hits. That was the type of performance that we've been waiting for, as we score 7 runs in back-to-back games and just need one more victory to move on. Mark O'Rourke has a chance to win us the pennant, although he's gonna immediately give up 2 runs. That is not good, although the offense immediately strikes back, tying the game up at 2 apiece. The bottom of our lineup produces a run, and they're gonna rally back to take the lead. That is exactly what we needed, as now in the 6th inning, there's 2 solo shots. It is now 5-3 with just 2 innings to go, and while Cleveland's gonna make it interesting, I trust Dennis Oliver to close it out, and there we go. With that victory, the Angels have won the AL pennant, and that's pretty good for Season 5. We were 1 win away from this last year, but this season, we stood on business, sending Los Angeles to the World Series. We coasted through those series, and now in the big game, we're gonna be taking on the Brewers. They finished with the 2nd best record in baseball, and for a very good reason. They made a huge splash trading for Paul Skeens from the Pirates, and in order to get him, they gave away Jacob Misiorowski. Then after him though, while they decided not to keep Logan O'Hoppe, they still have a pretty good offense led by Bryce Turang and Jackson Churio. Obviously the strength of this team's gonna be the rotation, as they have a really nice cast behind Paul, and then on offense, they did go out and get Spencer Torkelson along with Ezekiel Tovar. With the way our offense has been playing in October, I do think that we're the World Series favorites, although we're gonna have to break through Skeens, and that is a great start. We just scored 2 runs off of the best player in baseball, while Grayson Rodriguez is shutting it down. With the way he's been playing, he's gonna be our ace in this matchup, going up against Skeens every single time, and there's 2 more runs in the 5th. We start out the World Series making a statement against the best pitcher in baseball, and while every single player in the lineup had a hit, I do have to give a huge shout out to Grayson Rodriguez. He just showed everybody why he was the former #1 prospect in baseball. That is the best possible way to open this up, as we also win game number 2, and Freddie Ibarra's on the mound going into game 3. This is a really big game for Freddie Ibarra, as he's actually been remarkably consistent throughout the postseason, finally emerging as the pitcher who we've wanted him to be this whole time. So far in this game, he's holding down a shutout, and Isaac Collins delivers an RBI single against his former squad. With the way Ibarra's playing, that might just be enough to win this game, as it's 2-0 in the 9th inning, and Dennis Oliver is gonna close it out. That will bring the Angels to 3-0 in the series, and they're 1 win away from the World Series sweep. This playoff run has been night and day from the last one, as we've only lost 2 games in the entire month of October. Getting the sweep would be the cherry on top, and we've got Mark O'Rourke on the mound for what could be the final game of the season. This could be the first time the Angels have won the World Series since 2002, and I think the most impressive thing about this is they're doing it with a 20-year-old and a 19-year-old as their best players. The last time the Angels won a World Series was before either Lee Chang or Elton Granger were even born, and after an entire career of pain and suffering, Mike Trout's looking to go out on top. Even if we win the World Series this year though, remember that my goal is to turn this team into a dynasty, and we still have so many exciting young players who have not even sniffed the major league yet. We're gonna see a lot of these players come up over the next several years, so assuming we do win the World Series this year, I think we have a lot more in our future. Now it's time for the moment of truth, as we're looking for Mark O'Rourke to close this out strong. I can't think of a more dominant way to start a dynasty than getting a World Series sweep, but now in the 6th inning, neither team has still scored a run. We have a chance to strike first in the 7th though, and with the bases loaded, that is a walk and then a grand slam. That is the rookie George Lombard Jr. delivering, as we are leading by 5 runs, and there is the final strike of the World Series. Yoel Payamps finishes it off, and the Angels have won in dominant fashion. The craziest part about this though is with a 19 and 20-year-old superstar, they're just getting started. This is gonna be a lot of fun. We're only 5 years into the franchise, but we've won our first World Series, and I think we're really set up to win a lot more. Unlike in most of my videos, my goal in this one is to not just win the World Series, but turn the Angels into a dynasty. That being said, my lofty goal for the last 15 years of this video is to win 10 more World Series. However, in the offseason after our World Series win, we have a lot of guys hitting free agency, and many of them are important players. We're going to be making some tough decisions on guys like Jose Soriano and Michael Kopech, along with versatile utility man Willie Castro. While it is tempting to bring back Soriano, he wasn't fantastic this season, and Ryan Johnson's essentially the same player. With that in mind, I'm going to pass on offering him a deal, along with Luke Weaver, who I already resigned last year and has started regressing. That is 3 players in a row who I'm not going to be offering deals to, but Michael Kopech might be a little more interesting. At 81 overall with B potential, he's still really improving and is coming off one of the best seasons of his career. That being said, we do have money to spend, so I'm interested in seeing what he wants. For a player of his caliber, $5.6 million a year for 2 seasons is certainly not bad. I'm also going to try and bring back Willie Castro just because he's a switch hitter who can play all over the field. 2 years for $17 million is definitely a price worth paying. In the moment, I've decided not to offer a deal to Jose Soriano, although that could change depending on what we do with Alcantara. We signed him to a 2-year, $30 million deal last offseason, but unfortunately, he's already started regressing. After a year of Alcantara, I think I'm ready to move on, and the Phillies really need starting pitchers and have an potential prospect I really like. I'm not going to pass on the chance to get a switch-hitting outfielder who I really liked during the draft. We're going to make this deal. Even after trading Alcantara, though, I'm not going to make an offer for Soriano just because I think we can do better. This is a truly elite starting pitching class headlined by Paul Skeens, and I know we've offered a lot of big contracts already, but if the price is right on an elite starting pitcher, I would be open to making a blockbuster move. Right off the bat, the best value on the market might be Bryce Miller, who has extremely good per-nines and is coming off a really respectable season in Seattle. While this would take a 4-year deal, $23.4 million a year is a bargain for a player like Miller, who's 88 overall. As far as arbitration goes, we've got a lot of really good players in here who are all asking for a lot of money. Simming forward, while we do have a 60% motivation on Bryce Miller, Tanner Bybee is even higher at 70%. While Miller is without a doubt the better player, Bybee is also coming off a really nice year, and certainly wouldn't be a bad plan B. After simming another week though, Bryce Miller does not have anybody interested in him, so we should be able to offer him a slightly lowball contract and maybe get away with it. How about 4 years, $17.5 a year? That is about as easy as it gets. He wants to play for the champs. We have taken Bryce Miller away from one of our biggest division rivals, the Mariners, and as a Mariner fan myself, I do have to admit that he's looking nice in halo red. After that addition, we could very well pull the plug on the offseason there, but with Mike Trout entering the final year of his deal, I want to try to go after one more player. One of our biggest issues throughout the rebuild has not been having a left-handed bat, and Matt Wallner from the Twins would be a great solution to that problem. The 32-year-old is coming off of a career season where he hit 35 home runs, so even though we're later in the cycle, I at least have to try and go get him. Because we were a late horse in the race for Wallner though, I did make him a competitive offer, and fortunately, he's gonna sign the contract. I gave him a lot more money than he wanted, but he's coming to Los Angeles. After several years of searching, we're finally gonna get a quality left-handed bat in the lineup. lineup. Maybe the one negative of that deal, though, is it is going to send Mike Trout to the bench. Although at 79 overall, I think it might be time. Entering the season, we're ranked as the number 2 team in baseball, at least on paper, and honestly that makes me curious who number 1 is, although I think I have a good guess. It's the Dodgers. Because we've already won a World Series, I am done spinning the wheel of chaos just because I want to make these 15 years go pretty quickly. More or less, the lineup's looking pretty much the same as last year, and I'm curious to see if we can win more than 105 games. That was our win total last year, and we're already off to a great start. This was another fast start for the defending champs, but once again, the A's are right behind them. They're gonna have the chance to jump us in the division with a 4-game series, although we do take care of business and put them away. We're coming into the All-Star break with an 8-game division lead and a 63-33 record. The offense, and specifically Lee Chang, deserve a lot of credit for the success, as Chang's up to 98 overall, and it's definitely playing like it. It's been the same story for Elton Granger and Ray Padden, who did come into the break on a cold streak, so hopefully he can turn that around. Ultimately, these 3 players make up a really solid offensive trio for us, and there's a big reason that we're first in MLB in pretty much every major category. Lee Chang is the frontrunner for MVP, while Granger's the frontrunner for the batting title, with Dennis Oliver competing for reliever of the year. Then in the rotation, Mark O'Rourke has taken over fully as our ace, while Freddie Ibarra's having his best season as a pro. Those 2 guys have passed up Miller and Rodriguez in the rotation, as Grayson's really struggling. A 6.14 ERA is not gonna cut it, so I hope he sees some improvement in the second half. We're also gonna go ahead and try out Ryan Johnson, who's been playing pretty well as a long reliever. That's gonna send us into August with a 10-game division lead, and I know we're going pretty quickly through this season, but I do want to make sure we check out the draft class. Despite having the final selection in the first round, we struck gold with our first round pick, going for closer Jeremy Bender. I usually don't take closers in the first round, but when a prospect like him comes up, I feel like I don't have a choice. He's coming in at 81 overall right out the gate with 95 potential, and then with the rest of our class, we took 3 infielders who all have 90 potential and above, along with a really good starting pitcher. Then obviously with the final selection, there's not going to be very much on the board, as Mark McMahon was actually one of 2 draftable players we still had available. That's another successful draft class, hopefully setting us up for an even brighter future as we're simming the month of August with a huge lead. Entering September, it's become extremely clear that we're going to win this division, but I think more than anything, I'm looking for major awards. Through 5 seasons, we haven't really won anything, but Lee Chang has a chance to change that. He's sitting very comfortably in first place for MVP, while Mark O'Rourke enters the Cy Young conversation. This last month of the season could decide if the Angels make history, as they're still chasing 105 wins, and with about 2 weeks to go, it looks like they're gonna get there. With everything that's on the line, this final month of the season has a chance to be monumental for the Angels, as they're chasing major awards and 105 wins. With 2 series to go, we just need 2 more wins to get there, and we end the season on a huge win streak with 108 wins. We finished 17 games above the Athletics with the best record in baseball by about 7 games. If there was any doubt after the World Series sweep, the Angels have firmly established themselves as not only the best team in baseball, but going into another playoff run, they could potentially become a dynasty. Checking out the awards, Lee Chang did indeed win MVP, with Ray Padden finishing in 3rd, while Mark O'Rourke was also a finalist for the Cy Young. It was another excellent season for Chang, who topped his career highs from last year with 48 bombs and 148 RBIs. He's probably the best player in the league right now, and the craziest part is, he's only 21 years old. Just like other young players on the team like Padden and O'Rourke, the future is certainly bright as they've finally reached their ceilings, and there's another young player. Dennis Oliver wins reliever of the year. The 24-year-old former 5th round pick posted an ERA of 1.8 and a whip under 1. Add in 56 saves, and that's very well deserved, as he was the best closer in baseball. Our first base trio of Shanwell, Chang, and Padden once again carried the team, and I know everyone's going to talk about the 2 MVP finalists finalists, but Nolan Shanwell posting 88 RBIs as a DH is extremely valuable. Then after him, Matt Wallner and Isaac Collins had pretty solid seasons for us, along with Elton Granger, even though the production dropped off from 40 bombs and 100 RBIs. Then in the rotation, we already talked about O'Rourke, but bringing in Bryce Miller also proved to be a great decision with the struggles of Grayson Rodriguez. Entering the playoffs, this team is far and away better than the team that won the World Series last year, despite several key losses. And I think the big story with this one is getting Mike Trout a second ring. This will definitely be the final year of his career with the Angels, and possibly the final year of his career, period. Getting another ring for the future Hall of Famer is my #1 priority. This year in the ALDS, we're once again taking on the Athletics, and they're looking for revenge after last season. They may have lost Brent Rooker during the offseason, but they went out and signed Kyle Stowers, so they're still a really dangerous team. While the Athletics are certainly scary, I have no doubt that we're the better team, as I'm just gonna simulate this series, and we win it 3-1, just like last year. Our playoff run is staying in the division, as we're taking on the Astros, who are even worse than the Athletics, and we're leading this series 3-2 before winning Game 6. That is gonna send us back to the World Series, where the New York Mets are waiting. Once again, we managed to dodge the Dodgers in the World Series, and the Mets are only a 90-win team. On paper, we've had an extremely Mickey Mouse level playoff run, but I don't want to count out the Mets, who somehow managed to sign Andrew Abbott and Brian Wu. While they don't have any stars on offense, this rotation is scary enough to actually make me kinda nervous. If we're gonna win this series, we're gonna need our offense to break through, and they start out strong with a 13-3 win, and are 1 win away from repeating. We are now just 1 win away from winning back-to-back World Series, becoming the second team to do that in the 2020s. Brian Wu's going up against Bryce Miller, and so far this one's completely scoreless. The team that scores the first run will have the best chance to win this game, but that is an untimely double play with 2 on. The good news for us is this offense is not very good, although right then they silenced me with a 2-run shot. We might have to wait one more game to win this series. The Mets are able to keep their season alive with that victory, so now we're getting aggressive, putting Mark O'Rourke on the mound for Game 6, and that is not a good start. Their rotation is making us work for every single run that we score, and there's another one against our ace. Fortunately though, we're gonna strike back with a solo shot, followed by a go-ahead 2-run bomb. Just like that, we turn this game on its head, and Matt Wallner adds to the home run party. This offense continues to stand on business, getting us out of jams, and there's another RBI single. This one's gonna be over. The Angels have officially not only become back-to-back champs, but they've started a dynasty in Anaheim. Largely thanks to a fantastic season and postseason from Lee Chang, we send Mike Trout out on top. After the season though, Mike Trout did not retire, although he's definitely not going to be coming back. At 39 years old, he wants $10 million, and that's just not going to happen. Asking for that much money, I really can't see him signing with anyone else, so I think it's fair to say that his career's going to be over. He only played 1 game in 2030, but he did finish off with 528 home runs and 1,300 RBIs. That is a no doubt Hall of Fame lock, and I'm just looking forward to see him make it to Cooperstown when he finally decides to call it quits. Then, as for the rest of our free agents, Christian Moore and Reed Detmers are not going to come back. Despite being a solid starter in 28 and 29, Christian Moore has ultimately been pretty inconsistent, and at $14 million a year, I'm not looking to bring him back. As far as our offseason moves go, I do see that Uri Perez is available, and as a 27-year-old with a potential, I feel like I have to give him a deal. I offered him $17 million a year, and he's gonna accept that right out the gate. Everyone wants to join the champs. That is a huge move for this pitching staff, especially because Grayson Rodriguez is entering the last year of his deal. That means that once he hits free agency, we're gonna have a player to call up immediately in Stephen Chung, while Perez holds down one of the top spots. After not losing many players in the offseason, the Angels should have a really good chance to three-peat, but before we start the season, there's a couple rookies in the lineup who I'm really excited about. First and foremost, 2025 second-round pick Vaughn Terry will be making his debut at 86 overall. He's been patiently waiting on the bench, and as the second selection of the entire franchise, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do. He's essentially replacing Christian Moore as he's sliding over to third base, while Willie Castro's gonna play second. Then after him though, another player making his debut is Dwayne Liriano. He was our second-round pick the next next season in 2026, and he offers really good contact and plate skills, which I always look for. Then add in power in the high 60s, and this man should be an absolutely electric hitter with plenty of room to improve. Despite having 2 rookies on the team, this might be our best lineup ever, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the young guys can do. Then on the bench, we've got some really interesting players like Castro and Morel who can play pretty much anywhere, along with a speed demon in Justin Crawford, a backup catcher in Del Castillo, and George Lombard Jr. who should get some at-bats this season. Then in the rotation, our top 4 is going to remain completely the same, while Uri Perez solidifies our 5th spot. We're getting season 7 right underway, although we start out the season 1-5. That was a really rough first month of play, as we're under 500 at 16-18. I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but it seems the top of our lineup has seen a noticeable drop-off in production, and I was also worried the rookies could be the issue, but Von Terry's playing extremely well so far as a rookie. Despite having some good ones, we have not had a Rookie of the Year in this franchise, so maybe Von Terry can be the first. Checking out our pitching stats, though, I think I found the reason that we're struggling, as we have 2 players with an ERA above 5. One of those players is the newly acquired Perez, who apparently is regressing. I was really excited to get an A potential player in the building, but at 27 years old, it seems that the peak of his career might be behind him. Considering that we're baseball's best team on paper, our struggles don't really make any sense to me, but we've only lost 1 game in the month of June. We have quickly bounced back from our poor performance and are now just 1.5 games outside of first. It feels like it took some time for our team to gel, but with Lee Chang and Von Terry hitting 20 home runs or above, I feel like the offense has picked up right where it left off last season. We've got 5 guys who are over 50 RBIs. Then in the rotation, Freddie Ibarra, Marco Rourke, and Grayson Rodriguez all have ERAs under 3, while Ibarra might be a candidate for the Cy Young. He's putting up insane numbers, while unfortunately Uri Perez continues to regress. This is a system that MLB The Show really needs to fix, because in no universe should a 27-year-old be regressing like this. Checking out the awards, Chang is not currently set to repeat for MVP, but that could change in the second half of the year. Going through the rest of the awards though, I'm expecting to see at least something, and aside from Von Terry getting Rookie of the Year, it's actually been pretty quiet for us. Despite not ranking for the Cy Young though, Freddie Ibarra is going to be an all-star, along with closer Dennis Oliver, who's in the game for the 3rd straight year. Then for the rest of our team, for some reason, Shanwell makes the all-star game over Lee Chang, and for some reason, he's going to be our only other representative. Looking towards the future, we have quite a few notable free agents, with Matt Wallner, Rodriguez, and Isaac Collins all set to hit the open market. While these players have all been really important for our squad, they've kind of reached their ceiling and are starting to regress, so they're probably not coming back to the squad. Even if we three-peat this season, it looks like we're going to be entering a brand new era, and while that is intimidating, we've got a lot of top prospects just sitting in the farm system, and this draft's going to add to it even further. We got 2 shortstops with Hall of Fame upside. You know you're building a dynasty when your AAA team looks like this. Oh my goodness. We've got guys who could come in right now and probably be quality players, except they're buried on our roster. The Angels finished 103-59, winning their division, and also securing the best record in the American League for the 3rd year in a row, although the Dodgers came out of nowhere winning 111. Their team is looking drastically different than we're used to, and after dodging them in the World Series the previous 2 seasons, could this finally be the year that we take on LA? It was a bit of a down year for the offense, as Lee Chang put together another quality season alongside Elton Granger, but probably the best part of the season is that Dwayne Liriano and Von Terry established themselves as core pieces for the future. Getting 30 home runs from your rookie second baseman is absolutely clutch, and Dwayne Liriano stepped in quite nicely to replace Mike Trout. Then in the rotation, it was a breakout year for Freddie Ibarra, and we're gonna find out if he was at least in the Cy Young conversation. Then alongside him, Grayson Rodriguez had a bounce back year, along with Bryce Miller and Marco Rourke. I'm gonna be really cocky and kinda just full send through the playoffs, because I don't think anyone's gonna be able to beat us. We take care of Boston 3-1, and now we're taking on the Tigers, who aren't putting up much more of a fight. Despite winning 111 11 games, though, instead of taking on the Dodgers, we're taking on the Nationals, who managed to sweep them 4-0. All things considered, they're a really good team with a generational player in Kyle Fleming, along with James Wood, Luke Keeschel, and Chase DeLauder. Then in the rotation, they don't really have an ace, but they do have a lot of young quality players. We're just gonna jump straight into it, simming this World Series, and that was not even close. We just won it 4-1. That is officially a three-peat for the Angels, and the best thing about it is I don't think they're done. This team is young, talented, and should only be getting better as more reinforcements come through from the farm. We do have more key free agents than ever, but just being real about it, every single player on this list is either aging, regressing, or entirely replaceable. The biggest thing with this offseason and sustaining our success is we have a lot of guys that are hitting deep arbitration who are asking for a ton of money. For example, Freddie Ibarra wants $22.5 million this year, and that number goes up extensively in his final year. That being said, I'm gonna do everything I can to move on from Uri Perez while he's still 80 overall, and that might require giving up a player like Nolan Shanwell. While he's been a really productive DH over the past 4 seasons, his production has been a pretty mixed bag, and I think he should be replaceable. I feel like I found a really nice trade partner in the Giants who could really use Perez and Shanwell. They're a contending team that might be one pitcher away, and they have a really nice closer prospect that I'm interested in acquiring. I know we already have a lot of closers on the roster, but the bigger picture is they're not all gonna be closers. The bullpen could always use some more upgrades, so I'm willing to get whatever we can. It would be really nice to get one more player in this deal, but I'm just not finding anything that makes sense. So I'm actually curious, if I remove Shanwell, does it still get done? It absolutely does. They're taking a gamble on Perez while we acquire a 25-year-old bullpen prospect who's only 78 overall. That will also allow us to keep one of our best left-handed bats in Shanwell, and considering he's in the final year of his deal, I didn't want to do him dirty. With the exits of Matt Wallner and Isaac Collins, though, we do need to address the top of our lineup. Sliding Von Terry into the leadoff spot is easy enough, and then from there I moved Elton Granger and Ray Patton up, while leaving 5 and 7 empty. I really want to add another left-handed bat to the equation, but in the event I can't find one, I would be perfectly fine moving Shanwell up. While I could add a player in free agency, the one thing that's for certain on this team is that Jason Hoffman will be making his debut. He was a 4th rounder in our first draft, and with him and Steven Chung both coming up, I think that means that our entire first draft class is now at the show. That was a legendary draft consisting of Patton and Terry at the top, along with 3 starting pitchers in Ibarra, O'Rourke, Chung, and then Hoffman in right field. I think we've officially reached the stage in the franchise where our team is so good that free agency doesn't really matter. Just for example, we could shell out a massive contract we can't afford for one of these starting pitchers, but ultimately it just doesn't make much sense. The reason for that is our farm system has a great young player in Antone Cortez who's still looking for a shot. He's gonna start the year as our number 5 starter. With so much youth on our team, I actually didn't make a single offseason move, and we're starting season number 8 with a true next man up approach. After adding 2 new players to the team last year in Von Terry and Dwayne Liriano, we're going right back to the cupboards in our farm system with Ernesto Becerra and Jason Hoffman. Then on the bench, we've got a brand new backup catcher, but honestly, that's just about it. Then in the rotation, we finally have all 3 of the pitchers that we drafted in draft 1 up at the show, along with the second year of Bryce Miller and another rookie in Antone Cortez. Cortez was a 3rd round pick in 2026, and I'm really excited to see what he can do. Then in the bullpen, it's looking pretty much the same, with the exception of 2 rookies in Chase Shores and Tom Park. At the All-Star break, though, we might have some competition for the division title. Checking out the stats for the first half, it seems the offense is playing as expected, with Lee Chang on pace for another MVP season. And just going down the list, as per usual, we've got more players who are playing at a high level. Then in the rotation, things have been pretty rock solid outside of Mark O'Rourke, who's having the worst year of his career. At 25 years old, hopefully he can turn that around, because his ERA right now is 5.86. That's not gonna fly. On a positive note though, Steven Chung and Antone Cortez have been absolutely awesome and seem to have solidified themselves as key pieces of the future. Checking out the All-Stars, Dennis Oliver makes the game for his 4th year in a row, positioning himself to be one of the most dominant closers of all time. He has been nothing short of lights out, and regardless of how long he's with the Angels, I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of his career. Then at first base, Lee Chang is is obviously the all-star there, while Von Terry makes it as a shortstop. As we always seem to do, we turned on the Jets in the second half, taking a big division lead. Moving forward, I'm not going to be showing too much of the draft process, but most notably for this year, we had 8 draft picks with Von Terry winning Rookie of the Year, and Grayson Rodriguez declining his QO in free agency. That being said, we had another big chance to improve the farm system, and we delivered with 790+ potential players. Also, just in case you are wondering, 8 years into this franchise, we are currently sitting at 38 top 100 prospects. That might be the most I've ever had. That's gonna make the final 12 years of this franchise extremely entertaining, as we should be set for life. We finished out the year with our 4th straight 100-win season, but just like last season, that was not good enough for the best record in baseball. The Dodgers won one more game than us, and I'm hoping we see him in the World Series. Checking out the awards, Lee Chang did indeed win his 2nd MVP in 3 seasons, while we had the top 2 finalists for the Cy Young, with Freddie Ibarra taking it home. Unfortunately though, Dennis Oliver's not going to win Reliever of the Year, and neither of our offensive rookies were able to take home Rookie of the Year. After nearly trading him in the offseason, I'm glad that we hung on to Nolan Shanwell for his final season, as he put together a really respectable 32-97 year with an 822 OPS. He was 2nd on the team in home runs and RBIs, with Ray Patton, Elton Granger, and Von Terry right behind him. It was also a really nice season for Dwayne Liriano, and despite not winning Rookie of the Year, both Jason Hoffman and Ernesto Becerra did their thing. The production for Zach Neto has definitely dropped off over the years, but this season, as a platoon-level player, he did put together another respectable year in the final year of his contract. We're looking to win him his 4th World Series of his career to send him off with a bang. Then in our rotation, it was a magical season for Freddie Ibarra, who won 23 games, and of course took home the Cy Young. Before the season, I made the decision to offer him a 3-year, $31.5 million a year extension, and considering he would have made similar money in arbitration, that decision is looking genius. Aside from Ibarra and Miller though, Antone Cortez was also sensational, and while the other rookie Stephen Chung's numbers did decrease in the second half, he is also extremely promising. Then in the bullpen, we also added a couple rookies to the mix, but above all else, I think it's important to say that Dennis Oliver is still the man. We're taking on the Athletics in the ALDS for what feels like the 4th time now, and just like always, we're gonna beat them 3-1. That will bring us into the ALCS against the Blue Jays, except we're kind of in trouble here. It's gonna come down to Game 7. You can bet that the entire world is watching this one, as the Toronto Blue Jays are looking to play spoiler. Dwayne Liriano does start us off with a solo shot though, so we're leading by 1 with the Cy Young winner on the mound. That being said, the Blue Jays are certainly the underdog, despite starting out the series on an extremely good note, but finally in the 5th inning, they score a run. They have tied this game in the 6th inning, and now it's gonna come down to our bullpen, as Claudio Rosario's making me nervous. It's 3-1. After winning 3 World Series in a row, the Angels' run might be over, but it's gonna come down to the 9th inning. However, Jason Hoffman did start us off with a double though, and now Becerra's gonna be able to beat this out to get 2 aboard. That hustle is gonna get 2 aboard, and a wild pitch will send them to 2-3. We are out of double play territory. That is huge, but there's a strikeout. After walking Granger though, it's gonna come down to Lee Chang. This is it. The bases are loaded up for the MVP, but that's a chopper to second base, and the Blue Jays are moving on. They spoil the 4-peat for the Angels, and we cannot believe it. We were definitely the better team, and fluky losses do happen, but I can assure you that we're gonna be back. The Blue Jays would go on to lose the World Series to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and just considering the strength of this Angels roster, it might be a while before someone else wins the World Series. All of the players that we're losing in free agency are replaceable, although I think I want to bring back Nolan Shanwell for just one more season. It's hard to ignore a 32 home run, 97 RBI season as a DH, and considering that he's only asking for about $11 million, this is a move that I'm more than comfortable making. Everybody else though, including Zach Neto, will be testing free agency, and considering how strong our shortstop situation is, that's definitely not a concern. Aside from just going after Shanwell in free agency, I cannot resist bringing bringing in this top-tier reliever. As a 94 overall who's still improving, he's only asking for $13.7 million a year. As the #1 player in free agency, he's getting a lot of interest, but he's putting pen to paper with the Angels. We never want to lose in the playoffs again. After that big signing, I know that Bryce Miller just placed second for the Cy Young, but he's regressing at 34 years old, and with a year left on his deal, this might be the best time to move on for the best prospect we can get. Right now, he's blocking some other pitching prospects who might actually be better. Rather than trading him right now, though, I'm going to make a genius decision that's a little scummy, but I'm going to keep Miller on the roster for the first couple months of the year before trading him and calling up Tom Chen. The reason I'm doing that is just to save Tom Chen a year of service time. Along with getting the reliever, though, we're also getting Nolan Shanwell back on a pretty big discount. We did have to give him a 3-year deal instead of 1, but I feel like it's worth it. We can always trade him before this contract's over. Just keeping it real entering season 9, I don't think anyone's gonna be able to beat us. Most of our players from the first 2 draft classes are finally up to the show, including the newest addition in Mark Metoyer. He was a 4th rounder in 2026, joining Liriano and Lee Chang. With the exit of Zach Neto, he's gonna be our new starting shortstop and has a way higher ceiling and probably a higher floor than Zach Neto has. Then batting 6th, we've still got Nolan Shanwell, along with Christopher Morel riding the bench. Then from there, we've also got another rookie replacing Justin Crawford in Derek Ullman, who apparently we traded for at some point. I don't really remember. That's gonna round out an elite offense, and while our starting rotation is not changed at all, expect me to trade Bryce Miller in the first couple months of the year. We're definitely due for an upgrade at 5th starter, and then in the bullpen, Andres Perez will be making his debut. Simming forward to the month of June, I think it's time to move on from Bryce Miller, as he's 83 overall and is certainly on the decline. He is putting up good numbers though, so I feel like we can get something pretty solid for him. More important than anything though, that's gonna allow us to upgrade to 6th round 2026 draft pick Tom Chen. With that addition to the rotation, we've officially built an entire rotation out of our first 2 draft classes. Then right after that trade, we went absolutely nuclear, entering August with an 82-32 record. We're currently on pace to win 116 games, and with Elton Granger and Lee Chang playing like MVP players, that's not a surprise to me. Jason Hoffman, Von Terry, and Dwayne Liriano continue to improve, while the rookie Mark Metoyer is putting up really good numbers as well. Then in the rotation, Tom Chang has been an excellent addition, while everybody has an ERA under 4. As far as the awards go, Chang and Granger are both on top for the MVP, while we have 3 Cy Young candidates. This is gonna be a race to the finish. Ibarra's looking for a 2nd in a row, but O'Rourke's having an excellent bounce-back season. Then on the draft side of things, this one was a bit underwhelming, but the 2 things about this is we got 2 shortstops named Andreas Garcia and Andres Garcia. I don't think I've ever had that happen. We're gonna sim out the rest of the year and see if we can break the single season win record, as we are absolutely manhandling teams. That is a massive win streak to start the month. Entering September, we're 106-35, and on top of that, literally every single player on the team's on a hot streak. This is absolutely ridiculous. I would say the 2033 Angels are without a doubt the best MLB team of all time, as you don't normally see this many Hall of Fame players on a team at a time. On top of MVP and Cy Young, Dennis Oliver's looking for reliever of the year, and Mark Metoyer doesn't look like he's gonna make a race for rookie of the year. It goes without saying that we absolutely destroyed the win record with 122 victories on the year. Not a single other team in the league broke 100, and I'm expecting the hardware from this season to be very generous. It was a pretty close MVP race between Chang and Granger, but ultimately Chang's gonna win his 3rd award, pretty much locking him in as a Hall of Famer. While his resume is absolutely stacked, I also have to give a ton of credit to Granger, who is likely a Hall of Famer in his own right. Then going over to the Cy Young, we maintained the same 3 finalists, with Freddie Ibarra winning his 2nd award, so he's pretty much solidified himself as a Hall of Famer as well, alongside Dennis Oliver. At 27 years old, he now has 5 All-Star appearances, an All-Star MVP, and Reliever of the Year. Alongside those awards, we did not win Rookie of the Year this season, although Lee Chang did win the Hank Aaron. This team continues to reach new heights as we have several players above 90 overall, and this playoff run should be a breeze. Right away, we're getting a rematch against Toronto in the ALDS that we win 3-1, so we're going back to the ALCS for the 5th straight season and advance to the World Series. We're going to be taking on the Nationals, and honestly, this one shouldn't be close. We're able to win it in 6 games. Dwayne Liriano sweeps both playoff MVPs, and we're moving on to season number 10 with a huge decision to make with Mark O'Rourke. After struggling in 2032, he came to play in 2033, posting the best season of his career and finishing as a Cy Young runner-up. Even though O'Rourke's a lefty coming off a Cy Young finalist season, I just don't think it makes sense to bring him back considering how many good pitchers we have on the roster. Scotty Hayden's going to be the next man up as we have Tom Chen, Stephen Chung, and Antone Cortez still on veteran minimums. Then we also have Freddie Ibarra entering the last year of his extension, and if it comes down to keeping him or O'Rourke, we're going to choose Ibarra every time. We're going to tender Mark O'Rourke the qualifying offer, and if he declines it, we're going to get a draft pick for next season. To start out the offseason, I want to offer a contract extension to one of our best players, Vaughn Terry, as he's one of the players that we definitely can't afford to lose. The offer is 5 years, $128 million, and hopefully he accepts it. We're setting up for a really fun season 10, as this lineup is absolutely absurd. Nolan Shanwell is the lowest rated player in this lineup at 82 overall, but again, he still hit 94 RBIs this year, and I'm really excited what the younger players in the offense can do with another year of development. That includes our brand new 9-hitter and center fielder Edgar Chavez. He's going to be starting for us in center field, largely because he's a left-handed bat, but he also hits for a great combination of contact and power. This is a player with all-star upside, and we're getting him in the building at 23 years old. Then on the bench, we mostly have the same players, with the exception of Ray Patton, who did start regressing last season and is down to 85 overall, entering the final year of his deal. That is without a doubt the best offense in baseball, although the rotation might take a bit of a step back without Matt O'Rourke. Taking his spot in the rotation is Scotty Hayden, who's 22 years old and should have a really high ceiling. But before we even start the season, I want to give a contract extension to Freddie Ibarra. I'm offering $112.8 over 3 years, which he will accept. While we have a lot of really good pitchers in the system, Ibarra is by far our best at 98 potential, and at 31 years old, he should have plenty left in the tank. We won 122 games last season, and I don't know math, but I'm sure it's a lot more than that we're projected to win this year. Now, you would think that Lee Chang would be looking for his 3rd MVP in a row, but he's not even been the best player on the team. Both Jason Hoffman and Elton Granger have carried the offense. I love seeing Hoffman be productive as a 93 overall 26-year-old, and ever since being called up in 2032, he has gotten better every single season. Looking at the MVP ratings, after being a runner-up last year, Elton Granger is number 1, and we once again have 3 candidates for the Cy Young, as Freddie Ibarra also might not three-peat for his respective award. Now Dennis Oliver's trying to repeat as reliever of the year, but with 2 guys in front of him, it's gonna be a close race. Then we haven't won Rookie of the Year in the past couple seasons, but it seems that's gonna change. Scotty Hayden and Edgar Chavez are both 1 and 2. As far as the All-Stars go, Cy Young frontrunner Antone Cortez is leading the race, with Stephen Chung also making the game. Then of course, Dennis Oliver is once again an All-Star. Winning 80% of your games in Major League Baseball just seems absurd, but yet in season number 10 of the franchise, the Angels are doing exactly that. Now at this point in this franchise, I'm not exactly scouting these players just because I feel like it doesn't make any sense, but even then, we still managed to put together a pretty solid class of players. We would finish this year 125 and 37, breaking our all-time win record from last season, and obviously I don't have to say it, that's the best record in baseball. Just like we saw last year, pretty much the entire offense finished on a hot streak, with Jason Hoffman putting up an insane year. We're gonna find out in a second who won the MVP between him and Granger, but just looking at the numbers, it might have been Hoffman ripping an MVP away from our generational catcher. Just going down the list of this offense, it's ridiculous how many guys we have with an OPS above 800, as it's nearly every single player on the team. The only player who didn't finish with an OPS in that ballpark was Benito Zepeda, who came on late as a September call-up. We finished first in the league in batting average, first in the league in runs with over 1,000, first in hits, and then the big one, first in home runs with 325. Just as you might have guessed, that's an MLB record. The 2034 Angels are the best MLB team in history, and look at how many players hit over 30 bombs. Checking out the awards, sure enough, Jason Hoffman is your MVP winner, dethroning Lee Chang and knocking Granger out of the top 3. The 26-year-old had an absurd season, and just adding another elite power hitter to this core makes us that much more dangerous. Then for the Cy Young, the 22-year-old rookie Scotty Hayden's gonna win it, along with Rookie of the Year. I was nervous about losing Matt O'Rourke last season, but Hayden stepped up in the best possible way, quickly solidifying himself as one of our best pitchers. He's gonna prevent Ibarra from winning his 3rd straight Cy Young, while Antone Cortez placed 2nd. I already talked about the offense, but also the entire rotation was electric the entire season, with nobody posting an ERA below 3.5. Then in the bullpen, it was pretty much the same story, as rookie Jeremy Bender posted an insane stat line. Not only did we have the best offense of all time, but it's looking like we had the best rotation and bullpen in history of the game. It's gonna be almost impossible for any team to beat us, as we're taking on Toronto for the 2nd straight year, and that's another 3-1 victory. We have seen so many 3-1 ALDS victories as we take our time against Baltimore before moving on to another World Series that we sweep. That's number 5. We've reached the point where players like Ohtani, Jose Ramirez, and Bryce Harper are all retiring, but we do have a bit of a challenge entering the offseason as Dennis Oliver is hitting free agency. He's solidified himself as one of the best closers of all time, making the All-Star game for 6 consecutive years and also winning 2 reliever of the years in the process. I will say that he is coming off of his worst year as a pro, so I think we're letting him test free agency at the right time. Aside from him though, the first draft pick of the entire video, Ray Patton, is also hitting free agency. We signed him to an extension to keep him here for a little bit longer, but by the end of his time with the Angels, he'd regressed down to 80 overall and was nothing more than a bench player for us. He did have 2 really good seasons in 29 and 30 with 120 and 110 RBIs, but this is a player I'm more than comfortable letting go. I gotta be real, I don't know how much better this team's gonna get. We're first in pretty much every single position, and the ones that we're not in first place at, we're in the top 5. Just checking out the outlook though, we're supposed to get even better over the next 5 years, and considering that we're only in season 10, I think the storybook can be closed on this one. However, I did promise you guys a 20-year rebuild, so we're gonna pick up the pace on this one and do a year-by-year recap for the final 10. Entering season 11, we officially had all 90 overalls in the lineup, along with a rotation led by 2 Cy Young winners. No surprise here, the result of that was a 128-win season, and we would go on to win World Series number 6, while Lee Chang won MVP number 3, with Granger finishing as a finalist yet again. This was a razor-thin race, and for the 3rd straight season, we have a different Cy Young winner. Stephen Chung finished a perfect 22-0 as a starter, putting up one of the craziest seasons I've ever seen. Once again, Ibarra and Hayden were the runner-ups, while Elton Granger was in 2nd for the batting title, Jeremy Bender won Reliever of the Year, and Pedro Santana was Rookie of the Year. Unlike last year though, this season we only have 2 free agents, and none of them are really big losses. The next season would be very much the same, as Dwayne Liriano's won 4 World Series MVPs. That's insane. Apparently we found the best player in the MLB playoffs, and look at that. Elton Granger finally won an MVP. We have now had 5 MVPs in a row, with Lee Chang taking home 4 of them, with Granger and Hoffman taking the other 2. Then going to the Cy Young, no surprise, Scotty Hayden finishes 24-1, winning the award for the 2nd time. Then to the batting title, Elton Granger wins that, Jeremy Bender's Reliever of the Year, and Elton Granger wins the Hank Aaron. Now for the offseason, we were supposed to be losing Lee Chang, but I decided to give him a 5-year extension, as he's still at the top of his game. That means the only player we're losing is 4-time World Series MVP Dwayne Liriano. Somehow it feels like the team is only getting better, as the worst player in our lineup is 92 overall, and the same goes for the rotation, even though this is gonna be Freddie Ibarra's last year with the team. At 34 years old, he's a 2-time Cy Young winner, but he's also been a finalist about 3 more times. Despite having a better roster though, this was actually a bit of a down year for us, as we only won 116 games. However, we still won our 8th World Series, while Lee Chang won MVP number 5. Once again, Elton Granger was the runner-up, and Freddie Ibarra goes out on top, winning a Cy Young. At 96 overall, he's starting to regress, but getting his 3rd award pretty much locks him in for the Hall of Fame. Now in the season 13 offseason though, we're finally starting to see some players hit free agency. We're not going to have the money to get these guys back, so it's going to be a next man up approach for sure. Somehow, some way though, even after losing so many core players, I feel like the lineup did not take a step back at all. The lowest player in our lineup is currently 95 overall, and at least from a rating standpoint, our rotation looks about the same, especially after bringing Anton Cortez back to the team. It was the same result for the Angels, as we win yet another World Series in 2028, and we have a new MVP in Pedro Santana. Our 2nd round pick in 2028 is now up to 99 overall, and this is the first year that Lee Chang or Elton Granger have not been in the MVP race. Going to the Cy Young though, we finally lose it to our former player. Freddie Ibarra signed with Boston and just won Cy Young number 4. That's awesome for Freddie. One thing that's really important to note is it now takes a lot of scrolling to find Lee Chang and Elton Granger. They have both started the regression process at 30 years old and 29 years old, and they're going to be hitting free agency in 3 seasons. This is also where we move on from several key players like Vaughn Terry and Mark Matoyer. Now that we've reached the point where we're losing all of our best players and Chang and Granger are regressing, because the team can run itself, I'm just gonna simulate until these guys retire. After winning 12 World Series in 15 years, Elton Granger would retire with the Angels, while Lee Chang would retire with the Rays. The moment of truth though, going to the inductions, both of them are gonna make the Hall of Fame. They cap off extremely successful careers as Lee Chang finishes with 566 home runs, and considering how messed up development is in MLB The Show, that's pretty impressive. Thank you all again for watching this rebuild, and if you enjoyed, once again, please subscribe, because this took forever.